And welcome to the Big Brother Canada 8 Roundtable podcast. This is the podcast where we break down everything from the feeds. I'm your host, Aaron Armstrong, and with me today is Melissa. How you doing, Melissa?
I'm doing good. Hopefully this YouTube stream is working now, and hopefully I'm not having any more technical issues. Fingers crossed. But yeah, I'm very excited for our first roundtable of the season. Can't wait to talk about everybody and figure out what the heck is going on this season so far.
Yes, YouTube giving us some serious issues tonight, so this is probably going to be uploaded after the fact, but you can join us on Twitch, although if you're hearing this, you're only seeing me on Twitch or Periscope or Facebook, wherever you would like to join us, but we are live there if you want to join us live. I apologize for the technical difficulties tonight, but for those listening at home, you didn't have to deal with it, but you also didn't have the fun of hanging out and, you know, chatting about and having a laugh about all of this. So in some real sense, you missed out. Also with us tonight is Brent. How you doing, Brent?
I'm doing so great. I'm so excited to talk about Big Brother Canada and to tell you guys my favorites and who I'm hating on. I know you guys have already seen my ratings, so unlike most times, you actually know like a little bit of what I'm thinking about some of these people, but I'm so excited to get into it. I am loving this season.
Yes. You know, we are live on Twitch, Periscope, and Facebook. Not on YouTube tonight, but you can still join us and hang out as we go. But this is our first roundtable of the season, and we're very very excited. Very excited to bring the roundtable for you. It looks like Twitch might be having some troubles as well, but no, they're fine. Okay, we're good. Everything's good. Nobody needs to freak out. The plan is the plan. We don't need to be running around trying to flip votes like crazy people. Flip video platforms. We'll figure it out as we go. But we're here to talk about the week in Big Brother Canada 8. It's been a bit of a week. So let's talk about it all here. How has it been, Melissa and Brent? I haven't really been able to hear from either of you since the feeds went live. So how's the season been for you so far, Melissa?
It's been crazy. I mean, I can't even understand what's going on from 1 minute to the next, basically. There are some really fun characters so far. I think the strategy is a little all over the place, but there are some people that I'm really surprised by, either pleasantly surprised or in a negative sense surprised. And so that's going to be interesting for the ratings. I feel like everything I thought coming into the season is wrong. So that's what we got going on here. I'm having a little bit of trouble watching the feeds this season. I told this to you guys how normally it's a lot easier for me because, you know, you've got Big Brother US, which is at my time. I'm West Coast and it's easy. But for East Coast Canada, it's a little harder. But normally I can follow along with the Big Brother update Twitters and then go back and rewatch all the important parts and all the stuff that happened throughout the day. I've told you guys that it seems like I'm watching all the wrong stuff so far, so I really need to get my strategy down. I ended up watching just nonsense, I feel like, and I'm like, wow, there's not very much strategy going on. And then all of a sudden I watch Taryn's update in the morning and it's like, so much happened today, all this crazy stuff, and then I have to go back and figure out what the heck happened that I missed. It's been a process and I will get a handle on it, but right now I feel totally lost and confused, but you know, that's fun.
Yeah. Well, I think we're all a little lost and confused tonight, so it's fine. Brent, how has it been for you?
Like, if a podcaster talks in a woods and no one is around to hear it, do they really even say anything? That's what I want to know. I feel like that's what's happening right now. I have a similar experience to Melissa because one of our favorite updaters, Big Brother Daily, is not updating anymore. Mm-hmm. And that is the person I always used to watch on Twitter to fill in the gaps, like when I'm sleeping from, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And they're not doing it anymore. And then there are other people who are doing it, but they, I have a way that I like to watch stuff and get updated on stuff. And when one of those ways is taken away from me, then, it makes it a little bit more of a cumbersome experience to go back and then grab stuff, because like I work Friday, Saturday, Sunday from like, 6 to 2 a.m. And that's when like prime time happens in the Big Brother Canada house. And that's when there's a new HOH and all the stuff is happening. And so I'm doing my best to also get caught up. But I actually do feel like I have a pretty good handle on what's happening this season, who's playing well, who's not. And overall, I am super excited about this cast. I actually don't know if people out there listened. So Mark D from the Pretty Boys actually has a podcast, and where he is, shocker, reality alumni has a podcast, but he is talking about Big Brother Canada, and he did like a cast assessment, and then he brought Adam Pike on to do like a recap of the first week. And he talked about how messy these people were. And he was like, I don't know if production likes this, because production loved our season. We were just like, one straight shot all the way to the end. You knew exactly
what I said.
I know, right? Exactly what you said. I was like, where have I heard this before? I know I've heard this before. And then he was like, he's like, he's like, the fans loved our season too. And I'm like, I guess if you're counting Taryn, maybe. I don't know. A lot of people who really enjoyed Big Brother Canada 7. I'm really enjoying Big Brother Canada 8 a lot more.
Yeah, I have noticed, I've noticed, I think, a little bit more than usual that this season that I'm not seeing a lot of like what's happening on Twitter. Like I have been for the last 5 days or whatever, just like been in the feeds, like just that's where I exist, I think. And so like I'm taking notes like all day long right now. And I'm noticing that like large portions of what's happening are not being updated on Twitter, are not being even, I'm looking at Jokers, I'm looking at other sites. There's huge chunks missing. And normally I feel like a lot of that stuff is covered. And so, I guess that means, that the updates are extra valuable for now.
No, it's true. It's true, because that's how, honestly, like.
Oh no.
Shoot. God dang it. And it's a bad picture too. It's a bad image. I'm like watching myself frozen with my mouth wide open. Anyway.
Oh my God, that's so funny. Yes.
Is that I feel like I also, like Brent was saying, like when you have a way to watch something and you're like used to doing that for years, like it makes it hard when that switches. And not only that, like I always watch with quad cam. And so that way I know everything that's going on, every conversation. And if I'm interested in one, I switch to that. If I'm interested in another, I switch the audio to that. And so I know like at least like, oh, okay, so-and-so's talking to so-and-so. It's about this conversation, whatever. I get that. Now let me move on to this one. Now I'm like, I have to watch. Go back. Gosh, darn it. And then
I know it's frustrating. I'm sorry, honey.
Pause. And then I'm making you guys react to me pause. I don't.
Yeah.
And okay, I just am not gonna move. I'm just gonna like stay stationary, so at least.
Yeah, that won't work.
It's just very frustrating because it's just like I'm watching one cam all day, and then I have to go back and watch the other cam, like because I probably missed stuff on that cam, and I don't know what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. What a night here for the Big Brother Canada 8 Roundtable, first of the season. But it's fine because we've got great content. We've got a great podcast coming your way. Let's talk about the week as a whole so far. There's a lot to cover because we missed the first entire week, but we also have, of course, what's happened this week under Chris's HOH. So we're gonna go back now. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, the Roundtable podcast, I apologize. We are normally a little more put together, but what we do here is we recap the week on the feeds, which means full spoilers for everything that has happened on the feeds. We try to take a sort of holistic approach as opposed to the live feed updates, which is a day-by-day recap, and we talk about the whole week, and then we're gonna rate all of the house guests on a scale of 1 to 10 based on how well they're doing, how we view them as players, what their likelihood to win the game is, and then we have a lot of fun, lots of laughs to be had, and we laugh at ourselves, and and life and Big Brother. So let's talk about what happened. So obviously we saw on the show that the house guests entered the house right away. Nico, Chris, Min, and Sue were voted as the least popular with Canada, and they were immediately put in danger. Min is going to win the first competition, which grants her safety. Then Chris wins the second one. Now, apparently, what we have discerned from the feeds since they came back on, obviously we didn't see this happen ourselves and it was left out of the episode to some degree, is that apparently Chris and Nico were pretty close, and they were kind of bros, and that Min tried to flip the vote to keep Nico. We saw that a little bit on the show as well, and that failed pretty disastrously for Min, as Nico eventually quit the game. And was one of the reasons why both Chris and Min seemed to be outcasts at the start of this week, when the feeds came on. So obviously we saw the Nico quit. Melissa, how did you feel about the Nico? You haven't talked about this yet. How did you feel about the Nico quit?
It's frustrating because I do agree that it's a situation where he didn't quit prior to the first competition or the second competition or whatever. He quit afterwards when he knew that like it came down to social and he wasn't going to get to save himself. It just seems like giving up at that point. And I don't respect quitters in this situation, especially not right away in the game, when there isn't some sort of like medical reason or something, because, you know, people would like die to be on that show. Like there are so many people applying every single year who are just wanting to be on it, and if you don't care enough to even try, then like forget it. And that's honestly similarly how I feel about Carol's situation. I don't think that people should be convinced to stay, and same with Sam last year. I think that, or was it last year or the year before? I don't know. Sam in Big Brother US. Like I just think that honestly all the seasons are blending together right now. But I just think that people shouldn't be convinced to stay. If you want to quit, go, leave. Like, there's the door, because other people, you know, want to be able to play, and other people have been dreaming about this, and you're taking up somebody's spot. So just like leave. I don't know. I just feel like I have no sympathy for quitters in this game. And like, you know, that's how I feel about it.
Yes, and we are now live on YouTube. So.
Yay!
Hello, YouTube. You haven't missed much. We've just kind of been doing the preamble so far. But we're talking about the first week and how Nico ended up quitting the game, all stuff that you saw in the episode. And what we saw happen after Nico quit is that they had an HOH competition that Chris is going to win, and then he's going to be like flexing, like, yeah, look at me, I'm a flexer, yeah. And then he's
trying to show off.
All the time. And so Chris is, I really love that whole episode with Chris was just so fantastic. Between all the flexing and the not recognizing his mom, and
I have a little update on that. Like I've listened to his mom, like then some alumni were talking about like his mom and what she said. She said that the lighting when you come in, like, you know, she has a hat on, okay, and like the lighting is sort of spotlighty, so he can't tell exactly who it is. And he wasn't looking at his mom; he was looking at the name tag, because I don't think he's like the most massive fan of Big Brother. So he's looking like, I think they either told him or maybe one of the house guests told him, like, look at the name tag, because they're going to be wearing a Wendy's name tag, and that will tell you who it is. So if you don't recognize the person, just look at their name tag. Like if it says Ika, just say Ika. Hi, Ika. What are you doing? And then like he was like, hi, Kim. Like he never looked at her that I saw, or that that he could.
Oh no! I went back and rewatched the scene. He stares right into her face multiple times.
And she hugs and kisses him. Like, I mean,
he looks. He sees the name tag. He says, "Hi, Kim." I think it was. And then he looks at her. They hug. She kisses him. They step back. He looks straight at her and says again, like, "Hey, nice to meet you."
Yeah.
And then she says,
"Yeah." Also, she said
"Don't you
something
recognize me?" Yeah. And he's still staring at her, and he's like, "Mom?"
I like absolutely like I can guarantee you that if my mom hugged or kissed me and said something to me, like when she was hugging me, I would know it's my mom. Like I would absolutely know it's my mom. There's no way that I'd be like, oh, who's this random person? Like I don't believe I just can't believe it. It's something that's like so unbelievable.
I think the problem was Big Brother. Oh God, the problem was Big Brother Canada. My mic almost fell down. I know, right? The problem was Big Brother Canada because they should have pulled a Sierra Easton. They should have had mom on the name tag. That's what Doom said in the chat. Like the name tag should have said mom, and then he would have realized, because no one calls their mom by their first name. At least I don't know anybody who does. So like that would have been more appropriate in this instance, but whatever. It was funny. It was a good laugh. Wait, like I was living for Chris in this episode.
All right. Well,
I would feel so insulted if I was the mom. Like I come there and it's like I'm excited for the reaction, and he gives literally no reaction. It's just like, oh.
Well, it's been like a week. Like, come on.
No, but I don't know. I feel like I'd at least want my son to recognize me. Like, I mean, like that would be a start.
Oh my God, people are
outraged. You'd be so
outraged.
disappointed in your daughter if she was in there putting her heads on shoulders, not recognizing you when you came in. Anyway, what happened on the feeds though? As Chris won the HOH, he immediately bros down with Kyle, who starts to work on him. Kyle and Sheldon had both tried to start working on Chris prior to the HOH competition, which gave them both a bit of a leg up. Although Chris was still kind of skeptical of Sheldon, because he was worried that Sheldon had a final 2 deal with Michael, and as we know, Chris is not a fan of Michael because he's in the way of Chris and his lovely dear Madeline, and so Chris wants Michael out, and he also is worried about Sheldon, but Kyle is going to help kind of push this over from Sheldon and Michael to just Michael, and a plan is formed to put Brooke and Hira on the block so that Chris can backdoor Michael. Is this a good plan, Melissa?
I mean, I feel like it's the first one. I kind of think it's like just put like JL and Michael on the block. Like, just put them both on the block. If you know there's a 4-person alliance and everyone else in the house is like, yeah, we should get these people out. These guys are a strong 4. Just put them both on the block. You don't need to go through this whole, like, weird, like, deception thing. And I guess, like, he thought that this was, like, some, like, wild, amazing strategy or something. And I think, honestly, like, this is only some wild, amazing move that's, like, a game-changing move if you've never seen the show before. I think this is, like, pretty standard backdoor situation.
Yeah, I mean, the question is, was this a good move for Chris, and was this a good move if your plan is to get Michael out? As to the latter, I think it's an okay plan, but I agree with Melissa. I would have been much more comfortable with the plan, and I can't believe Brooke or Sheldon or somebody didn't say this. Kyle, anybody who had influence with Chris, to be able to say, you know what, the veto can go bad here. It can really go bad. Anything can happen. Once it's out of your hands, they literally can hijack your HOH by freezing the nominations. At least put one of them on the block. That way we have assurances. Like, just use, Ree as a pawn or Maddie as a pawn. Something like that would be good. But they didn't do that. They went ahead with this crazy plan. And honestly, I wanted it to backfire on them. If not for the fact that Brooke and Hira are on the block, I really would have wished for it, because they deserve to have this plan go bad. It was just a bad plan from the start. So many things that could go wrong. There's no need to backdoor a guy like this. You can just, again, you can at least put somebody of his alliance up there. Or as Melissa said, just put JL and Michael on the block. But of course, Chris doesn't want that, because he doesn't want to get JL out. He wants to get Michael out. And why does he want to get Michael out? Because he's hot for Maddie, and he's not happy that all the girls aren't falling all over him because Michael's in the house. So again, that's whether or not you want the plan to work. As for whether or not it's a good plan for Chris himself, I think this is a terrible plan for Chris to get rid of Michael. Terrible. Like, you have to look at Chris. He is an absolute mammoth beast of a man. Like, he was sitting in the hot tub a couple days ago, and I tweeted out a pic of him saying, honey, that is a man with a capital M. He is everything. The fact that he doesn't recognize that he needs more big bodies in the house to get attention off of him is absolutely nuts. I mean, there is no item in Big Brother parlance greater than a showman's, and especially a showman's with a really built guy in it. Like if you have Michael and Maddie still in the house, people aren't going to be looking at Chris. They're going to be looking at Michael and Maddie. They're going to be worried about them and whatever they're doing, especially if they're in a 4-person alliance. But he doesn't see it that way. He decides, I'm going to go for Michael. I want to get him out of the house. And so here we are.
Here we are. No, yeah, I agree with you, actually. I think that if you think about it, and I think you're totally right to call out, like, a fan would kind of know not to do this. The very first lesson ever learned in Big Brother history when playing this version of the game was Mike Boogie learning in season 2, the first week, that putting up a pawn as the first HOH is not a good idea. You cannot let the first HOH turn into a referendum against you. You have to put up 2 people they're fine with both of them leaving. Either one of them could go, it's fine, because if one of them is somebody that you don't want to leave, then the house can turn on you because it's the first week and everything is still pretty fluid. And if the house turns on you, you will now forever be the person the house turned on in week 1, and you will forever be maligned for that reason. And it will cost you in the game, and it will cost you in the end if you somehow manage to make it there. Having a successful first HOH is a huge advantage in the house, and making sure it happens that way, the only way to ensure it is to make sure that you can't lose, and intentionally giving people 2 options, one where you lose, one where you win. It gives people the opportunity to make you lose, and that's what Chris has done this week.
Yeah, exactly. And I will say that, and we'll get to it, and the trials and tribulations of Michael and him trying to stay in the house. It's almost like the presidential election. If you make it a referendum on the incumbent, you might have a chance. But he's making it a referendum on himself. He's trying to keep himself in the game by offering, like, here's what I can do for you. Here's what we can do for you in our alliance. And I really don't think that has traction. I think he would be better served if he could somehow demonize Chris. But unfortunately for him, even though Chris is a bit of an oaf, he's actually a pretty nice guy. So I think he's going to have trouble in that respect.
Yeah. So that is the plan. He is going to execute that plan, but there's some more to talk about. Now, the house has kind of divided up in a few different ways. We'll get into that when we talk about the state of the house. But the relevant information here is that Vanessa is involved in an alliance that we saw on the show, KVBS or whatever it was. And that alliance is part of a bigger alliance called 6 Feet Under. And that alliance of 6, which includes the core alliance is Kyle, Sheldon, Brooke, and Vanessa, and then the additional 2 to make the 6 include Suzanne and Carol. And those 6 are a secret alliance that have representatives in most corners of the house. It's a very successful alliance formula. We saw it work very well for the Pretty Boys last season, and they only had 4. We saw it work extremely well for Derek and the Bomb Squad / Detonators back in season 16 of the US version. This is a dominant strategy in Big Brother as long as you have the right people involved who are willing to stick together. That's where this alliance has failed. They included one player. Her name is Vanessa, and she doesn't like being in an alliance, especially with people like Kyle, even though he is her number 1 and she is his number 1. Well, not any longer. But basically, Vanessa doesn't like it, doesn't like the alliance, doesn't like the people. She wants out. She has decided that she feels like that she's not heard in the alliance. She's not listened to. She feels like she's at the bottom of it. I've talked about this a little bit. Reminds me a little bit of Devon in season 18 when she was in the middle of 2 pairs at the start of the game. She was in a 5-person alliance with 2 showmances. She was like, I can't be in an alliance with 2 showmances. That's terrible. I want out of this. When in reality, that's like a fantastic spot to be in because you're positioned really, really well with 2 great big meat shields in front of you. And if worst case scenario happens, you make it to the final 5. They're still targeting each other before you. It's just a great place to be, but she didn't want in.
Do you know that Devon still defends that move, by the way? I just want you to know.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, she's literally like in my textbook of like how to learn Big Brother. She's literally there as a great example of what not to do for that move. So,
My goodness.
So,
She had a great exit at least.
yeah, I mean, she's look. Great character. But so Vanessa's a little bit in that spot where she's in this really, really crushing spot in the game, but she doesn't like it. And she doesn't like Kyle. And so she's starting to feel like she wants to do other things. However, before that happens, there's a little bit of a hiccup. Now, Brooke and Hira do get nominated. Hira ends up winning the veto, and we'll talk about some of the veto stuff as well. This is a complicated week, but Hira has the veto, and there's a little bit of shenanigans that go on where Vanessa had been talking with Min Lee, who was an outcast at this point, but has kind of had a good relationship with Vanessa and has been talking a little bit of crap about Kyle. And so at one point, Kyle told Vanessa something that Vanessa thought could only have come from Min, so that Min definitely ratted her out. And so with that information, she went full blast and said to Kyle, Min wants you backdoored. She lied about this. She pretended that Min wanted him backdoored, tried to get Min backdoored that week. Chris shut that plan down. He said, no, Michael is the target. And so then when Vanessa went to Min to try and clear things up, Min managed to flip Vanessa back over, and now she hates Kyle again. And if this is confusing, I'm sorry, that's Vanessa. So now she hates Kyle again, and she wants Kyle out. And now she is firmly with Min and Carol, who has also joined this trio against Kyle and to break up the 6 Feet Under alliance, as well as the KVBS alliance to some degree. And I promise this is all relevant. So that's where that kind of went. Another thing that's happening, although let's just stop down there for a second so you guys can comment on Vanessa to this point, because Vanessa has been just all over the place to
go ahead, Melissa. I have shit to say, so go.
I was just gonna say, I feel like I'm partially convinced, not fully, but I'm partially convinced that Vanessa's just like employing an anyone but me strategy, where it's like she doesn't care who it is, who goes, like whatever, as long as it's not her, and she's just gonna like align with whoever and talk to whoever and be friends with whoever or hate whoever, as long as it means that she's not gonna go that week. And that's like what I'm thinking is going on. Otherwise, like it makes absolutely no sense to me. So I'm like trying to find some logic in it. And so like I mean, because I'll be watching it and I'll see a scene where Vanessa and Min are talking and they're like, oh my God, you're my favorite. You're the only person I love in this house. Like, you're amazing. Like, da, da, da. And then like 2 seconds later, she's like talking about how much she hates Min and Min should be backdoored. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, what's going on here? So, I mean, if Brent can explain it, then like, please explain it.
I think that Aria Goddess in the chat had it right when she said that Vanessa reminds her of J-Lo from Sequester. Those of you who didn't watch Sequester with Taryn and I, there was a fabulous contestant named J-Lo Rocks. She went really far in the game, but she made some nonsensical decisions as the game moved along. At least Vanessa has the decency to get the crazy out of the way right at the beginning. Like it's basically the first week and she's already doing it. But like J-Lo made nonsensical game decisions to the point where like I was trying to see the through line of what she thought, and it was just impossible to see. I will say, Melissa, that I am with you in terms of being totally confused and bewildered and bewitched by Vanessa. Like, there were times where I've been watching her on the feeds and I'm like, I had to have missed a conversation, or maybe like I need to flash back, or I need to see something and I'll see what I can do. But obviously I've missed something. So I'll go to Taryn. I know what I'll do. I'll go to Taryn. He'll know what happened. So I'll just listen to the update in the morning and then I can get caught up on like, where is this coming from? But literally for the past 4 days, all Taryn has been like on the update is like, like I got no clue what this chick is doing. Yeah. So I've never seen somebody who's willingly in like such a good spot who just wants to torch her game. She just wants to actively lampoon it. Go ahead, Melissa.
I feel like she's so quick to turn on people. Like,
yes,
if she hears one thing, or like if she thinks one thing, or if they say one thing, it's like, that switch is flipped and it's like, oh, I hate that person now.
Yeah.
And then how she like goes to the next person. It's like, oh, I hate that person now, but I like that person again because they said this nice thing to me or whatever it is. It's like she just like flip.
Yeah, that's the thing. Stacked has it right in the chat. Nobody knows, including Vanessa. I am 100% convinced that Vanessa cannot even tell you what her plan is, what her idea is, what she wants to happen, who she's aligned with, who she enjoys, who she wants out at any given moment. I just don't feel like there is any substance to what she's doing. It's just like a robot that literally has like the on switch permanently on, and so she can't shut down. She's just got to do stuff. It's Taryn, explain this.
Well, so I've heard some people try in an attempt to explain what's happening. They've looked at the last day or so, and they've been like, well, here's what she's doing. This must be it. She just sees the writing on the wall with Kyle, and she's trying to jump off the sinking ship. Like that's all it is. It's very simple. But I think that the people who are trying to explain it that way are forgetting that she's the one that sunk the ship like 48 hours ago.
Thank you. That is the part that I don't understand. Like, you can't be like, well, this is what she's doing to get off the ship or save the ship when she's the one who caused the ship to sink in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, like everybody is now talking about like Kyle as a sinking ship. His downfall has arrived. Everyone is against him. That is 100% on Vanessa. Would
100.
not have happened without Vanessa. Min
100.
was with Kyle. Min was with Kyle until Vanessa turned Min against Kyle. Vanessa also turned Carol against Kyle, and then Min has subsequently gone and helped turn other people against Kyle as well. Now you might say that people like Hira and maybe Jamar could have been anti-Kyle without this happening. Certainly the evictors might have been upset with Kyle after what happened, but with Vanessa in place to help mitigate the damage, and Min out there like working what she was doing, like none of this would have happened. Vanessa has I said she took a rocket launcher to the bottom of the ship and just went, here we go, and then jumped off like with like a couple of floaty devices, not even a full raft, and then at one point she was like, no, bad floaty device, and she killed it, and then she was like, actually no, I miss you, come back. So that's.
And honestly, if we're sinking Kyle's ship, I'm kind of okay with that.
Oh yeah, I'm 100%
Like,
on board with this.
Stick him around. So,
Oh my God, he's such a baboon. Like he's such an idiot. Whatever. Moving on.
Yes, Kyle, who at the first like 2 days of the feeds. Now, Kyle is a player that I described when the feeds immediately came on as like, this guy is he just plays full force the whole time. There are a lot of players like that in this cast, but Kyle is he's a very big guy. He's a very aggressive personality and strategy in the game. Now, what he was doing was very effective at first because he had the foundation of this secret 6-person alliance behind him, and so he was capable. He found himself in a power position and then just worked that power position endlessly. But what happened is that Vanessa turned on him, cut away his support. He still doesn't even realize that it's happened, and so now everything that he's doing, same stuff but without the support, and it's dropping like a stone on a ship. We're just talking about ships. It's the anchor on the ship, but it's gone right through the ship. Is what's happened here, Melissa.
Honestly, something that I was thinking about is like, so I hate the scenes where he's like with Kyle's with Chris, and they're just like throwing it up and being like, and he's gassing him up basically. Like Kyle's gassing Chris up, and Chris is so excited about his move, and he's like, I have a name for us. Like, we're gonna be like whatever he never
The
named
generals.
Yeah, the generals, and like so excited about it, and you could tell he's like so pumped on it. And then you've got like Kyle like gassing him up, saying like, this is amazing, oh my God, this is so great. And then like literally the second that conversation ends, he goes to Sheldon and is like, I can't even say it, it's so embarrassing, oh my God, okay, that's what he was doing. Like, and it's just like, I feel like that's a bad game move. Like, as much as I also feel like it makes me like cringe, because it just makes me sad, because I don't like it. I don't like to see someone like, I just feel like I feel bad for Chris essentially when that sort of thing happens. But then I also feel like it's not a good game move because I think that if that ever gets back to Chris, which like it absolutely could, that looks so bad for Kyle. Like to be like mocking him outright and telling him all and telling Sheldon and everybody else all the details. I feel like there's certain things that like you can share with your like quote unquote like alliance. But I also feel like you should keep some things close to your chest and not reveal certain things like the name of the alliance or whatever. And then you could like tell like at least if Chris ever finds out you said anything, it's not like, oh yeah, he was like outwardly mocking you and making fun of you and saying he told me how stupid the generals was and how stupid your plan was and all this sort of stuff. It's like I feel like there's a way to do it where it's like, hey, this is what he's planning, and not give all the details. And then if it ever gets back to Chris, you could kind of explain it away, like, oh, I had to reveal this one thing, but like you and I are still good or something. I don't know. I just feel like for a game move to just like go out there and just reveal all the information, I feel like knowledge is power. And if you're not going to use that knowledge properly, like, I don't know, it's not something I think is a good game move.
Yeah,
I wouldn't do.
My advice for Big Brother players is always that, you know, trash talking people, it is a bonding thing in Big Brother often. I mean, everybody does it. There's nobody that just avoids trash talking people. Even the pure-hearted, the most pure-hearted, like Nicole from Big Brother 21, engage in a little bit of like, Jackson, what an effing effer that guy is sometimes, right? And the thing about it, though, because you can certainly use that as a bonding technique, but my advice is always try not to be the instigator of those things.
If somebody
else starts trash talking to you, then you can be like, oh yeah, definitely, and like give examples and like, you know, contribute a little bit, but try not to say like actual incriminating things that can be used against you. Now some people have gotten away with this. Andy, of course, was infamous for his trash talking bonding sessions where he went full force and never got in trouble for it. Won very handily in the jury. But what we have seen, as Melissa pointed out, is that this has immediately come back on Kyle. He said a comment about Carol, and we'll talk about Carol as well. Carol wanted to quit the game at one point, and so he said he was so upset about it that he wanted to throw her bag over the rail. That's what Vanessa used against Kyle to turn Carol against him. He said he had been making fun of Chris at various points in the game prior to Chris winning the HOH. He had been talking to Michael and telling him things about Chris and how Chris had a theory that Michael and Sheldon were working together. Chris gave Michael the heads up about that while he was making fun of Chris, and Michael has now told Chris about it, and Chris now knows he can't trust Kyle, and it makes him very sad, but now he only trusts his girls. And so this has definitely immediately come back around here on Chris. Sorry, Kyle.
Yep.
Those names.
We were talking about that before the podcast. I just want to prepare you guys. I'm sure all of us at one point are going to substitute Chris for Kyle and Kyle for Chris.
Yeah,
like until one of them's out of the house.
Two big beefy bros whose names start with a k sound and they're like single syllable and like 4 to 5 letters. So you know what are you gonna do? So what happens is Hira and Brooke are on the block. Hira wins the veto.
Yay!
Now there was a whole plan to convince the evictors, which are Maddie, Michael, John Luke, and Rianne, that the real backdoor target was Min. And Min came up with this plan. She said this to Chris, and she said, "Hey, just tell them that I'm the target because they want to target me." And so that's what they were pushing on the evictors, and they were saying, "Maddie, if you win the veto, use it because we need to get Min out." But when Hira wins the veto, he's able to take himself off the block, and the plan goes forward as it was planned. And Michael is going to be blindsided with the back door. And the plan for everybody involved in that plan was to act shocked. oh my God, we all thought it was Min. Part of this was because they spent so much time trying to convince Maddie to use the veto that they were like, this makes us look so shady if we knew the whole time that we need to pretend that we didn't know in order to justify that in the past. And so they all were planning on going, oh my God, I can't believe it. The problem is these people, they don't coordinate very well. They never get in rooms together to just like all talk and like agree on a plan. And so Chris immediately outed all of them by saying everybody was involved in this.
Everybody knew.
And chaos reigned in the house as people scrambled to try and figure out what to do. Brooke very quickly, and I think handled this the best of all of them, just said, you know what? I knew. She's still lying a little bit. She said she found out the day before and that she was already on the block, and what is she gonna do? She didn't have the veto, so she didn't say anything. She's sorry. Maybe it's a cowardly thing. And Michael's like, it is a cowardly thing. You made a bad decision. You're a bad person. And then he's like, why won't anyone else own up to it? She's a bad person, but why isn't anyone else opening up to me about this? And so that's what she did. Sue is pretending that she found out right before the ceremony, which is an obvious lie that they see through. Kyle is swearing on his children. I knew nothing about this. How dare you even insinuate that I might have known anything about this? It's insulting. I just feel ganged up on, Michael, who's been backdoored. I feel ganged up on right now that you might suspect that I might have had something to do with this, even though Chris is my best bro. No, I knew nothing.
Sure.
This is so bad. I mean, like Braden had it right on the update with you earlier today. You have to own the blind side. It makes them feel so much better. Like, they're not going to feel great, but if you at least own your shit, then people are going to come around eventually. If you continue to treat them like they're stupid, and they're going to continue to feel stupid, and they're going to get more and more angry and more upset at you because you won't come clean with the facts when they can see the facts. Like, if the facts are open and everybody knows the facts and you're not admitting to the facts, you're just going to drive them crazy. So just own your bullshit. Let me back up. This whole plan to make Maddie look so stupid by getting her to use the veto was so misguided to begin with. I can't even believe that Sheldon and Brooke went along with it. I can sort of give Brooke a pass because her ass is on the block and she maybe feels like she has to do something. But Sheldon, you have to know this is going to come back and bite you. Like, there are going to be consequences. There's going to be an invoice to pay for behavior such as this. So then later on down the line, when everybody finds out, and everybody is going to find out as they're finding out now, that there was a plan all along to get Michael out, you're going to be one of the last people to know. You're going to look like an idiot. You're going to look untrustworthy. And all of the remnants of Michael's previous alliance now knows that they cannot trust you. Even somebody like Kyle, who's saying, I swear on my kids. Bitch, it's the first week and you're swearing on your kids on an obvious lie. You've just used up all the credibility that you had in the house ever. Like, it's just gone. Nobody can believe anything that you say anymore. So just shut up. I don't understand how they didn't realize that, and maybe this is just a reflection of these people and how messy they are. They just have no semblance of a cost-benefit analysis of their game moves within the house, Melissa.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
For the record, the other people that are continuing to lie about this, Min is denying all involvement, but she is currently getting away with it. Jamar also denying all involvement. They both were very involved and knew. Well, Jamar was less involved, but he very much knew far ahead of time. They're both denying all knowledge, but they're both, the difference between them and Kyle right now is that they are getting away with it. Yep. For now, which is very important to note because they are beginning to have working relationships with the evictors. Jamar much more so than Min, and they trust Jamar a lot. They don't really trust Min, but they're trying to work on Min because they need her vote. If this information is revealed at some point, it will probably cause a lot of distrust.
Let me say something.
Them.
I think this is the perfect time for Min and Jamar to come clean because the nominations are already in place. They need their votes. The evictors need the votes of Jamar and Min to make a run at this in order to save Michael. This is the perfect time for Min and Jamar to go to them and say, you know what? I want to come clean with you guys. I did know about the plan. I made a bad call. I see that now. I made a bad call. I'd like to keep Michael. I'm going to try to make it happen. But I just want you to know where I'm coming from. I don't feel good lying about it. I just want you to know the truth. I feel like if they did that, that would be so great. And it would earn so much goodwill with them.
I don't know. I feel like
because Melissa, they're going to find out eventually. It's going to come out.
But they could couch it in a way that's like, I heard about it. I heard rumblings of it, but I didn't think it was true. So I didn't say anything or something like that. I feel like that's
disprovable though.
But I think if they say, I want to come clean to you and tell you the truth, it means, so you lied to me. Like, I feel like that would be my first reaction is like, so you lied to me. How am I ever going to trust you? Like, okay, cool. So you came clean after the fact, after we were just like all buddy and being pals and friendly to each other. Like, that's not okay. So I feel
because
like
they need her. I like I said, the difference
they need
here
her for right now, but then the second he stays in the house, it's over. Like,
I feel like if Min actually is part of the contingent that saves Michael here and they save him, if the evictors come to power, they ain't going after Min Lee. They're going after other people who had more to do with trying to get Michael out of the house. So I feel like, again, this is the perfect time for her to come clean, but I don't think she's gonna.
I agree with you, Brent, and I think that the events of the last day kind of go along with what you're saying as well, where now one of the interesting quirks about Vanessa is that she just seems to have it out for Brooke. I have no idea why. She's never actually outright said it, but she even way back when the feeds just started, she was trying to make sure that when Chris wanted Brooke on the block as a pawn, while Sue and Kyle were trying to work to get Brooke to not be nominated, she was just like, well, you're just going to have to basically accept it, Brooke. And then when they were talking about who is the veto going to be used on, Brooke or Hira, Vanessa was talking about her preference would be to leave Brooke on the block. And she said that to Min, she said that to Kyle. Then the next day she actually went to Kyle and, to Chris and said to Chris that, hey, I think we should reconsider who we're using the veto on. I think that if we left Brooke on the block, that would be better for us, and actually convinced Chris to use the veto on Hira instead of Brooke, and then blamed it on Chris when she talked about it to other people. And then Sue had to go and undo it. And so she really just seems to have something against Brooke, and I'm not sure what it is, but she has continued to talk about, like, do not go to Brooke, do not talk to Brooke. She wants this whole alliance blown up. Maybe the whole thing comes from Brooke. I don't know, but Brent, you're gesturing like you have some insight.
I just don't remember, this is somebody who she's supposed to be in an alliance with. She's in 6 Feet Under with Brooke. I don't understand why she is so consternacious with her. I don't know if that's a word. Whatever. She is such a bitch when it comes to Brooke. Like, what are you doing? Like, there are so many other fish to fry besides Brooke. What is your problem with Brooke? And again, this is one of the things where I'm like, I have to have missed something. Like, there has to be something that I've missed, or maybe there's something that happened at week 1, and we'll figure it out eventually. But I have been able to figure out nothing. Taryn, Big Brother updates, online Big Brother. Nobody knows shit. We don't know why Nessie doesn't like Brooke and wants her on the block. And it was, like, as Taryn correctly pointed out, and I was thinking about this, it's not like Vanessa would have had the votes to get rid of Brooke, even if she did stay on the block. Like, let's say it was Brooke and Michael. I mean, which I know it is right now, but this is before the veto happened. So she was talking about she wanted Brooke to stay on the block, and they were originally going to take Brooke down, and she wanted Brooke to stay on the block, but she doesn't have the votes to get rid of Brooke in that instance anyway. So she just wants to punish Brooke and make her feel uncomfortable. She wants to suffer. She wants to make her walk through the streets and yell, "Shame, shame, Brooke!" Like, what is your problem with her? Oh my God.
Well, that's now becoming an important part of the week because Michael is campaigning. And as we know now that Vanessa, Min, and Carol have all turned against Kyle, and Min has been turned against Kyle so much that she is now single-mindedly just aiming at Kyle must be destroyed at all costs. It has to be next week. She's convinced that Kyle is coming after her because that's what Vanessa told her, even though it's not true.
Not true.
That Kyle maybe will come after Min in like 3 or 4 weeks. But she is convinced that Kyle is coming for her next week. She's convinced that Kyle is Dane and that he has the whole house under his spell. Although now she's realizing that that's not true, but she still wants him out. And she's very single-minded about it. So much so that she is willing to hear Michael out when he says he will go after Kyle. If Michael will go after Kyle and Brooke won't, then maybe I should keep Michael in the game, even though literally everybody else in the house is also going after Kyle at this point. But that's okay. But she's considering this as an option. And then Carol, also not a fan of Brooke. Brooke opened up to Carol about her past, which involved some, I don't know exactly what it was, but like she talked about like having trouble in relationships, and she's had problems like being open and honest with people in her life. And so Carol took that to mean, oh, she's a liar. Right. Can't trust anything she says. And so Carol is very anti-Brooke, and so she wants to flip this vote as well. She wants to keep Michael. Vanessa seems to be on board. Hira is somebody who also wants to flip this vote. He wants to keep Michael because he wants to work with the evictors. He had a relationship with Brooke, Sheldon, and Sue, but they kind of neglected it. Didn't really tell him much, didn't really bring him in. He was on the block next to Brooke, and so he felt like he was kind of pushed out of that, left out of that, and so he decides he wants to go over to the other side, try to work with the evictors, which means trying to keep Michael. Now, if you're counting the votes as I'm talking, then you can probably see that if you need 7 votes, because Chris will break a 6-6 tie in Brooke's favor. So 7 votes includes John Luke, Rianne, and Maddie, who are 3 solid votes, definitely voting that way. If Hira votes with them, that's 4. Then Min, Vanessa, and Carol all make 7. So they can flip this vote if they want to, and they all do want to. So the question becomes, will they? And we'll get to that question. We'll circle back to it, I guess, because we also need to talk about let's talk about the vote. Let's talk about the vote, then we'll circle the Carol thing. So that's where we are right now. That happened today, that all of these people have talked about flipping this vote. They also pitched to Jamar, and Jamar is pretending to be on board with them. Now, Jamar is a very key element here because Michael really trusts Jamar. He opened up to him about his military experience, and he really is counting him as a vote. And so Michael is pitching to Jamar and Min and Hira and saying, hey, we have all of you guys. Let's all come together and make this vote happen. And so for a brief moment, Min thought this is happening because Jamar and Hira are on board, Carol is on board, Vanessa is okay with it, this is going to happen. But what happened was Hira then finally had his conversation with Sheldon, Brooke, Sue, and Jamar, where they finally started to solidify something together, which they had been talking about but hadn't gotten around to. And in that conversation they talked about like, will we go after Kyle? Brooke and Sheldon were kind of like, we don't really need to, which is correct, but not in this context. But ultimately it was an overall good conversation for Brooke with Hira, because it kind of got Hira like, okay, I don't need Michael to stay. So then when Hira went and talked with Min afterward, Min asked Hira, who are you voting out? Jamar was there as well. He was involved in that conversation as well. Jamar is now pretty firmly, I think we should keep Brooke. That's what the house is doing. Hira didn't feel comfortable enough in that moment to tell Min that he wanted Brooke out, and so he said, yeah, that's probably what we're doing. And then Min was like, oh, okay, so they lied to me because they said you guys were both locked down. And so now Min feels like the votes aren't there, and she's talked about this with Vanessa, and so the vote flip has been shut down for now, because Min doesn't realize that she does have the votes to make the vote flip happen. So it's very likely that it could come back together at some point, but that's where things stand right now. Very much fluctuating in the air, and there's a lot to talk about here. So, Brent, how do you feel about all of this?
Well, I mean, the problem that I see is that Min thinks that she needs Jamar. She does not need Jamar. That's the problem. Maybe she thinks she has to have Jamar on board because she has this weird sort of flirtmance, homance, whatever it is with Jamar, which is very fascinating. And I love it. They're absolutely my two favorite people in the house.
I love it so much.
Yeah, I don't know if she feels like she can make a move without him. I hope she does feel that she can make a move without him. Like he can go his way, she can do what she wants. So she has the votes to make this happen and to keep Michael in the house, who will then go after Kyle, which is what they want. You know, again, somebody like Brooke, I love Brooke, but I don't think she's doing a lot for them personally. I think she'll be more of a problem for them later on than somebody like Michael ever would. I think that Michael is not a great game player, and thus he will be easier to take out later on. He will also be a big, obvious target, whereas I feel like Brooke will not. You want to get somebody like this out in the beginning of a reality TV game. You want to get out the person who fades into the background, the person that nobody's putting a lot of thought into, somebody that can slip under the cracks. That's Brooke right now. And I feel like it would be good for somebody who's chaotic as Min to get rid of Brooke, but she doesn't know she has the votes at this point. But there are 2 days left until eviction. So I'm still hopeful. I don't want to say I'm hopeful because I love Brooke. And I also like Michael. I think he's a good guy. But I'm really over the sort of, regular pretty person, white showmance. And like, I'd like to see a new storyline, which is like what I feel like we're getting from Jamar and Min. And thus, if Michael stays in the house, I feel like we're going to get more of Michael and Maddie. And I really want to see more of Jamar and Min. So
I don't want to see any more of Michael and Maddie. I want Michael out. He's fine. Okay. But like, I like Brooke. I think she's interesting.
Here's the thing. I'll just say, like, I like Brooke, but I feel like she is just stepping in it left and right. Like, I don't feel like she has a lot of agency in the house. Everything she does fails. She's not been able to move one heart or mind.
On the block. Like, I feel like
I know that.
I thought she did a good job in her conversation with Chris, and I was impressed with it. And I feel like Michael, when he had his conversation with Chris, I was like totally turned off. Totally disgusting.
Well, yeah, he was angry though.
Yeah, or whatever. It was so like, disgusting. I don't know. I just
maybe I'm high. Yeah, go ahead.
Let me say, in terms of like which one is better to watch, Michael has just been whining ever since he got put on the block about how 100%. It's unfair and it's immoral and people who lie in this game shouldn't be here. Only the good people should be here. He's literally said those things. The good people should make it to the end, like me. And that if I was HOH, I wouldn't lie. I would just tell people exactly what was happening the whole time. That's how the game should be played, and all of that stuff. And it's been super obnoxious. But I will also say that I do actually very, very much disagree, Brent, that this is the right move for Min. I think this is a terrible move for Min to try and flip this vote for a multitude of reasons. One of which is that Michael and Maddie, they need her right now, but they don't like her. Maddie hates her. She might give them what they want right now,
I know.
But they will turn on her very quickly. And they are a very tight 4. Along with that, there you have the problem of Chris, who is like fully on board with a lot of these people. In order to make this happen, Chris will need to she'll need to betray Chris because Chris wants Michael out. She'll have to stab him in the back. Chris doesn't trust Kyle right now, but if Min does this, he will be forced back into Kyle's arms because he has nowhere else to go.
That's
he got betrayed by everyone except for Kyle. In fact, I think this vote flip helps Kyle dramatically. I think it helps Kyle because the house is already very much against him, but if the vote flip happens, it solidifies his allies with him and it tips him off that everybody is against him. And now he knows who to target and who to deal with. I guarantee you, if Min flips the vote, he will go to Michael and JL and start to try to deal with them. If they're in power, they probably won't buy it. But if he is in power, he definitely will try to make a deal with Michael and JL and be like, you know what? We both got screwed over by Min. She was playing both sides. Did you know that she was in on the plan to have you backdoored? Did you know that she was the one that came up with herself as the decoy? And Michael will be like, oh my God, I didn't know. She's playing us both. And Min is totally effed in many different directions if this happens. And not only that, but she thinks that she can do this without letting anybody know that she did it. She thinks that she can secretly flip the vote and then not
heard
take any
that.
responsibility, which
Girl.
will only make her look even shadier.
Only Tyler
I think,
can do that.
I think that she could be gone as early as next week if she makes this happen. And I was just before today actually really high on her chances moving forward in this game. I think that there is a ton of reason for her to keep Brooke around and continue on the path that she has been on for now, because it's been a pretty successful path. But she's really just single-mindedly just focused on needing Kyle out, and like I said, I think ironically this move could actually help Kyle and hurt her in the game, and so I'm definitely watching this very closely.
So like this is why Terrence's better at Big Brother than me. I agree with everything you just said. I think that's fair.
Let's go
but
crazy.
like but like I have different goals though. See, I just want to see the comedy of Maddie and Min in an alliance together. That's what
I feel like
I
they've
want.
been in an alliance for like 2 seconds.
I want them to be in an alliance. And they hate each other.
It's punishment for us because then we have to see the evictors all season and a Maddie Michael showmance. It's like,
yeah, but the evictors aren't going to win anything. I mean, come on. I mean, they might win something, but they're not going to win the game.
Look,
like, everybody knows about them.
I think if we get rid of one of them, whoever it may be, maybe that opens up the others to do something. And I think that, like, if we get rid of Michael, I feel like he was, like, the main driving force in that alliance. And once he's gone, I feel like, I mean, who knows what's going to happen with them. Maybe they'll, split off and maybe become interesting. I don't know. We'll just have to see.
Yeah, and I tweeted this out that, like, it's Big Brother 101. What you want to have happen is have two sides of the house battling it out, and you kind of sitting out of that battle, right? And that's what Min has actually, and I'll say this, Min has impressed me over the last few days, up until the fact that she wants to flip this vote, by her managing to flip Vanessa, which, Vanessa's hard to control, and position herself pretty well. She's actually talked to Hira and has, made a deal with him and is trying to work with him. She's got Carol, she's got Vanessa, she's been working on Jamar. She's got a lot of relationships. She's positioned herself decently well, and she's gotten it to the point where the remaining evictors, JL, Rhi, and Maddie, will go after Kyle, and Kyle will go after the remaining evictors, and she gets like a couple of weeks of freedom if she just lets that happen. But if she intervenes, if you take two sides and they're fighting and you decide to intervene and say, no, I am going to decide the outcome of this particular battle, then both sides go, wait, who are you and why are you interfering? Maybe we should team up and focus on this interfering person. We see that happen all the time, and I fully suspect that it would happen in this instance as well. I think that means that the heat does come off of the evictors for a little while, and having a tight four that are super loyal to each other, where some of them know each other a little bit outside of the house, I think that's a very dangerous group of people who can probably make it very far if Michael survives this vote. I don't see them going anywhere anytime soon if Michael survives this vote, because a lot of people have to blow up their games in order to make it happen. So the entire trajectory of the season is completely dependent on which side of things ends up winning out this week.
Well, let's hope that Min doesn't realize that she actually does have the votes to get this done. Because
I mean, there's a lot of time.
I know.
A lot of time. So the question is, will Min realize that she can make this happen with Hira but not Jamar? Will she decide that she wants to do it with Hira and not Jamar? Will she decide that she wants to go through with it and piss Chris off? Like, is she willing to make that happen? I think that she might, because she still thinks that she can do it secretly. If she thinks she can do it secretly, I think she'll go through with it, even though it might piss people off, because she thinks, well, nobody will know. Which, we'll see how that plays out, like we have seen like with Veronica and like all of these people who have tried to do similar things in the past, right? So we'll see what happens here, but I think that we are in for an interesting couple of days leading up to the eviction as we see what happens with this vote. There's one more thing we need to talk about before we get into the state of the house, and that is in the veto competition. It was a very physical competition. Carol competed in the competition, and she just felt completely physically drained and beat up afterward. She got a tooth like loose or chipped or something. And she just felt very down on herself. She doesn't really like her position in the game socially. She feels like there's so many big personalities in the house, and she didn't expect it to be like this. And she just doesn't want her to break down her body. She wants her child to have a mother, right? And so she decided that she wanted to leave the game. She packed up her bags. She went into the diary room. She told them, "I want to quit."
And they let her quit. She walked out of the
end.
house. We don't have to deal with her anymore. She's not there.
She's
not going to be dragged to the end.
Who have not been watching feeds. Carol is gone.
Yeah, that didn't happen. I'm just
No,
kidding.
they convinced her to stay. They assured her that her dietary needs would be met. Again, we don't know exactly what that means because they cut the feeds every time they come even close to referencing it. But I've said this before. I don't expect that she will ever be on slop in this season of the game. That is what I fully expect, whether or not it was in writing or whatever. That I don't expect her to ever have to go on slop. And she has a keto diet, which is why her dietary needs are important. She needs to get back on ketosis in order to feel better. So that's part of it. So that's it. They convinced her to stay. She still wanted to leave after they convinced her to stay that whole day, but then the following day she says she feels a little bit better, and that she's here to stay for now. Again, we saw this happen before. If you're convinced to stay, you usually will go back and try to quit again at some point. We'll see what happens, but
This is just the invoice that Big Brother pays for letting Nico quit during the first week. I mean, he was one day away from them actually having a vote, and he decided he was going to walk, and they let him. They didn't I don't know. We don't know what happened that week. We didn't have feeds. We didn't see what was going on in the diary room. Maybe they tried, but if they would have really impressed upon him the gravity of the situation and how, look, this really looks bad. If you quit, then other people feel like they can quit, and it just creates a chain reaction. I guarantee you that's the reason why Carol went into the diary room and was like, you know what? I think I'm going to quit the game too, because she saw somebody else do it and they were allowed to do it. So why can't she do it? This was a bad call from Big Brother. It was one day, one effing day. They couldn't make him wait one day. That's all. I'm sorry. I don't think his mental faculties were being harmed by the fact that he needed to wait one more day that he willingly signed up for the Big Brother game. But anyway.
Yeah, honestly, I'm very against quitting, and I'm very against convincing someone to stay who wants to quit. I think if someone wants to quit, the most they should be doing is saying, "Are you sure?" And then
would you like to talk to someone? Yeah, get a psychiatrist in there. I'm cool with that.
Yes, I'm sure. Like if they say, "Yes, I'm sure I want to quit," then don't sit there and be like, "Please, no, God, no, don't quit." Just let them walk out the door, because clearly they're not going to be fun to play. We're not they don't care about winning. They don't care about the game. It's just taking up space, and it's taking up a week of eviction because it's just going to be pointless. So, let them go. That's fine. They're not going to be good in the game anyway. It sucks because it's I think Carol, I really like Carol preseason. Not that I don't like her now, but I'm just saying, it does suck that, someone who you do like preseason and are excited about seeing to play turns out to want to quit. Yeah, that sucks, and they're going to leave. But, if they want to leave, they want to leave, and they're not going to be fun anyway. So, goodbye.
Yeah, two things. The show, if somebody wants to quit, let them, because they're not going to be fun on the show, probably. And then second, for their own mental health, let them quit the show. We saw this with Sam. If they don't want to be there, they shouldn't be there. I don't care about your schedule. I don't care about the precedents it sets. I think that you should just let them go. You can drop your triple eviction or whatever, do whatever you need to do to make the schedule work out. But if somebody doesn't want to be there, you shouldn't try and convince them with whatever methods you're using to stay there. That's how I feel.
Yeah, I'm so lost. Apparently Nico's mental health meant something to Big Brother Canada, but Carol's mental health, it's girl, bye.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go over the state of the house. Try to get you to understand exactly what's going on here. We have a few different alliances, but none of them are really very solid at the moment. We have KVBS, which is Kyle, Vanessa, Brooke, and Sheldon. They should be running the game, but Vanessa had other plans. The people in that alliance, they're targeting the rest of the evictors right now, and Vanessa is actually targeting Kyle, who is in that alliance. So that's a little bit of a mixed target depending on who you're talking to in that alliance. Then you have 6 Feet Under, which consists of KVBS plus Sue and Carol. This is just completely gone at this point. Sue is still working as though it's a real thing, but Carol has considered it completely gone for a while, and she's now targeting Kyle. Some of those members are targeting the evictors, and Carol to some degree is targeting Brooke. So another alliance with members of it targeting themselves. Then we have this Carol, Min, and Vanessa alliance, and they are pretty tight. They're extremely anti-Kyle, very pro-woman, unless that woman is Brooke, Maddie, or Rhi. That's how they feel. Oh, and Sue, she sucks too. She's way too close to Jamar. So very pro-women, except for half the women in the house. So that's where they stand. Then you have the evictors, which is Michael, JL, Rhi, and Maddie. They are targeting Kyle and Chris right now, with maybe a little bit of Sue or Sheldon on the side. They don't like Sheldon very much. They really dislike Sue for lying to them. They are trying to pull in Hira. They are trying to work on Min. Carol has now approached them. They're trying to work on Angie, but that's not working. They very much trust Jamar, and they very much should not trust Jamar, because Jamar's loyalty is to Sheldon. Jamar has kind of a thing with Sheldon and Sue. They are a great little trio there. You can kind of add Brooke to that. You can then kind of very lightly add Hira to that. They tried to solidify something there, but that's, once you get that far, it's very fake because Hira's not really with them. You then have Chris's Angels, you might call them, and this is an alliance that I like to describe as Chris thinks that he has all the women on his side, but he actually doesn't. That's basically what the alliance consists of. I did just hear from, I read that what is happening right now is that Min is describing to Hira that she would like to get rid of Kyle so that she can work with Chris. I don't know if she thinks that blindsiding but ruining Chris's plan this week and evicting Brooke is going to help with that goal, but she does actually want to work with Chris to some degree. Sue also a little bit wants to work with Chris, but doesn't like that he is very touchy. She doesn't know how to turn him down. Then you have people like Vanessa, who you never know where her head is at. Angie genuinely, I think, likes Chris and wants to work with him. Angie has been brought in by Chris to some degree as well. So he actually does have some of the women, but most of the women are also a little bit like, yeah, but he's not exactly a number one ally or anything. There's somebody else I'll deal with for now. So that's kind of where the house is. The reason I'm kind of running through this quickly is that, if I'm being honest, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Everything is so fluid. Everything is chaos. No matter what happens, whether Michael leaves or Brooke leaves, a lot of things are going to change. And then the next HOH is really, I think, going to shape the direction of the house moving forward. So if you didn't catch all of that, it's okay. As long as you understand the structure of that, Brooke and Hira were nominated, Michael was backdoored, and now there might be a vote flip to save Michael, and everyone is against Kyle, but a lot of people are also still against the evictors. That's basically where the house stands. Everything else is kind of just like, maybe?
Yeah. Taryn, I have heard, though, that this is okay because chaos is a ladder. I heard Brooke say this.
Yeah, I think, didn't Brooke make that up? Didn't she come up with that?
From somewhere.
Chaos is a ladder in this house, she tells Min, and you are a master of chaos. So yeah, that's what's going on in the house. There's quite a lot. We're gonna get to the individual stock watch ratings soon, and we'll talk more about individual games, which will probably be a little bit easier to digest as we go through that. But anything else from the week that we should bring up before we get into the stock watch?
I just want to talk quickly, and I know we are long on, or are short on time tonight because we have so much to talk about. But I just want to quickly say that the nomination ceremony that Big Brother is using this year with the sculptures, and then Chris like steps to the people that he wants to. Now they got rid of the short list, thank God for that. But this is terrible. Like, this is terrible. I have no idea what they're doing. I think they wanted something else to happen, and then it didn't happen, or maybe it wasn't working. So they just like had Chris turn to the people that he was going to nominate, and then after all that, he goes out to nominate them and says, "As HOH, my responsibility is to nominate 2 house guests for eviction. My first nominee is Hira." Like, nothing lights up behind him. There's no magic bust in front of him. Nothing rises up out of the ground. They are totally dropping the ball on this one. Like, this is terrible.
The sculptures were very strange.
Yeah.
I
did like the when they said that Nico was put on ice and they like blew his statue like with like light blue paint, and then it became like an icicle. That was very good. But they need to do this. I expect more from you, Big Brother. If you're gonna make the house guests inhale all this smoke during the veto competitions, you've got to at least give it to me during the nomination ceremonies.
I just want the key wheel.
Whatever.
I just want the key wheel.
I like. What do they have during the? I don't know. The little key cards and like, and then in Big Brother 3 they had the clock time machine gears turning, and you know they click the gear shift. You know, like that was good shit. This is terrible. Trevor, get on that.
All right. All right, let's get to the Stock Watch. Now, again, if this is your first time here, what the Stock Watch is that we go through every player still left in the game. We give them a rating from 1 to 10. 1 being terrible player, one of the worst we've ever seen, no chance to win the game. 10 being one of the greatest players we've ever seen, like a Dan Giesling, somebody who has a very, very good chance to win the game. And then everything in between, with 5 being about average, about an average player, average position relative to everything else that's happening, and also the whole history of Big Brother. And so that's how we rate the players. Then what we do outside of the podcast is that those ratings will translate into a stock price, and you can play a game that we call the Stock Watch, where you get a certain amount of fictional money, and you can buy and sell players with based on that price, and then every week as the ratings change, the price will change, and you can make money or lose money in the Big Brother Stock Watch. So I will give you more information about where to go after toward the end of this podcast, but that's to set it up, and we're going to get into the Stock Watch now and talk about some of these players this season, because I think there's a lot to talk about here with these guys. So let's get it up on the screen. If you're watching along on YouTube or Twitch, wherever you might be, you can see the visual here. If not, don't worry, we will be talking it through as we go as well. So let's get started. We're going to start here with Chris, who is first on the board here, our HOH, and he was an outcast, seemingly on the chopping block as a target this week had he not won the HOH. But he did win the HOH. Historically, the first HOH has been very advantageous to players who are able to win it. Now, however, we have to consider the fact that this is not truly the first HOH. It's actually week 2, and somebody has already gone home, and alliances had already formed before this HOH happened. So I think the benefit to this HOH was nullified to a degree, but I do think it still helped Chris out quite a bit. I think that his target level has gone down a lot. He certainly has pissed off the evictors, and if for some reason Michael does manage to stay in the house this week, that is definitely bad news for him. But he's in an interesting spot because a lot of people do want to work with him, but he's also still a bit of a crazy person. So I don't know where to go from here. Melissa, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. I feel like he's ending the week in a better position than when he started the week. But at the same time, a lot of this week has been spent with people like mocking him behind his back, which I feel very sad about, and doesn't really bode well for people like wanting, like really respecting him or wanting to work with him in the future. But it does seem like there are some people who want to work with him, and you know, his target I think they're a bigger fish to fry, essentially. I don't think people are seeing him as like a crazy threat. Now, if he goes on to win like the veto this next week, maybe people will start to be a little more nervous about him, but you never know. So for now, I'm going to give him a 4.
All right. I am mostly with you here. Now, I was thinking about giving Chris a 5 because I felt like in a situation where Brooke stays, Michael goes home, yes, he might have Maddie, JL, Ree coming for him, but they're mostly going after Kyle. He's the bigger threat, and he actually has a lot of people who are on his side. Angie, Jamar, he has, Vanessa and Sue to some degree. He certainly still has Kyle right now. Sheldon isn't exactly coming for him soon. Even Brooke might use him as a pawn, but has bigger targets, bigger fish to fry than Chris. And that's not a bad place to be. And even though he is pretty creepy at times and very weird, he has a sort of like enthusiasm to him that makes people trust him, actually. He seems like such... Michael describes talking to him when Michael was mad at him after being backdoored. He said it was like berating an 8-year-old. And Chris does. He has that like childlike energy to him that makes him seem trustworthy. He has that like puppy dog sort of thing. And so people think that they've got him on lock, and he's actually just like a little bit savvier than people anticipate. And I think that's going to work well for him. The question is, can he win the game? Can he win a jury vote, win respect? Not super likely, but again, the sort of like childlike positivity that he sometimes exudes could work in his favor there. And so I was thinking about a 5, but with everything that happened today with a potential vote flip, I think his position is a little bit weakened. If that vote flip happens, he'd be like a 3. If it doesn't happen, I think he's like a 5. So if you split the difference, I'm at a 4 as well. Brent, what do you think?
Yep, we are 3 for 3. I'm giving him a 4 as well, and for similar reasons. Although I will say that while I agree with you, Taryn, he has a certain earnestness about him, even throughout all of the crazy. I do think that could pay dividends for him later on, in that if we're talking about a potential win at the end of the season, even though it didn't pan out in our season of Sequester that we were watching, if people generally like you, they will learn to respect you at the end of the game. That likability can evolve into respect. And Chris has enough seriousness about him at various times that I do feel like the house guests, if asked to vote for him, could buy into that. So even though I don't think that a guy like this could really get to the end of the game, I think he's gonna like his size is gonna catch up with him eventually. You're just not gonna let somebody who looks like this get to the end of the game in Big Brother. But then again, I said that about like people like Adam Pike and Dane on Big Brother Canada 7, and look what happened there. So, but I'm giving him a 4, and I'm pleased to see that everyone else did as well.
All right. Well, I also poll the audience and get their opinion on each of these players. I tweet out a survey every week. You can find me on Twitter at ArmstrongTaryn. I tweet it out after the morning update, so you'll have between then and the roundtable to get your votes in to rate all of the players, and so the audience can contribute here as well. The audience has given Chris a 4 out of 10. They agree with us that, it's straight 4s here for Chris. Let's move on to Brooke. Brooke, who definitely interesting to talk about, I think. Brooke is an interesting player. She's very smart. She's actually very social. She's very good socially. Like, she can really relate to people. She can connect to them emotionally. She thinks very logically at the same time. She's able to really come up with good plans and understand what she needs to do once she gets the information that she needs to have in order to figure out what to do with it. And I think that she can go really far in this game. That said, she's on the block and could be going home this week. Yeah. This is in part due to some of her faults in the game. Mainly that she is an introvert. She's an introvert. Talking with other people drains her, and she doesn't like to do it as often as is required in the game. And so she often just kind of defaults to hanging out with Sheldon, who is her number 1 in the house. That is not great for her. Now, she got herself in a really good position as the core of a secret 4, and which was the core of a secret 6, and then controlling the house with that. And I think that what's happened here is that Brooke she's a big fan of the show. And she's very concerned about overplaying. There's a stereotype that fans come on, they're game bots, they overplay, they embarrass themselves. And I think that over the last couple of seasons, we've seen this sort of paradigm impact super fans that come onto the show. They're afraid of playing too hard, and they end up actually playing too soft. Not
too
hard
passive.
enough.
Yep.
Yes. And that's what's happening here. She played very hard when she came in. She got into this great spot. And then she was like, okay, that was a lot of playing. I need to slow down so I don't overplay and surpass my limit and overextend. So I want to try and calm myself down. I'm on the block. I don't want to screw anything up. I'm just going to chill out. I've got my allies. I should be safe. Nothing should happen. Logically, I should be fine. The problem is that people in the game are not always logical. Case in point, Vanessa. Now, Brooke has no reason to suspect that Vanessa would do something like she's doing, completely blowing up her entire game and the games of her alliance members. But that's what's happening, and Brooke hasn't been putting in the legwork to realize that it's happening. There have been a few hints here and there that it's happening, but it's just kind of gone right over her head because she's not thinking enough. I mean, we worried that she was an overthinker, but she's actually an underthinker. And it's not getting into her brain that she's in trouble here right now. And so she doesn't realize that her life is on the line. If she did, I think that she could probably out-campaign Michael any day of the week, but she doesn't. And that's a huge issue for her if the plan solidifies and gets solid, and then she finds out later and it's too late to do anything about it then. So right now, I think that she has a lot of potential, but she really needs to learn some kind of lesson to light a fire under her. Otherwise, she's going to be in deep trouble. I also gave her a 4. And I'm even tempted to go as low as a 3 because of how likely it is that the vote could flip here on her.
I wanted to give her a 3. And let me just tell you guys, like I told the chat this already, but just spoiler alert, I gave out a majority of 1s, 2s, and 3s to this cast. So the fact that I'm giving her a 4 is actually a pretty good score. Like she's in the upper 50% of the cast by getting a 4 from me. I am astounded at the fact that she is so blind to see that she is in some real trouble here. Also, as I said previously, and I know Melissa doesn't totally agree with me on this, that I feel like that Brooke has been totally unsuccessful at almost anything she's tried. Anytime she's tried to move the game in a certain way, I feel like it doesn't work. And she just laments the fact that, it doesn't work. Now, she did eventually have a good talk with Chris, but I feel like that was sort of after the fact that she was already up on the block and in some danger. And then the other thing about Brooke is that she's concerned about overplaying, but that paralysis can then lead to underplaying, which is what I feel like is happening right now. I am really worried about her. I'm not even just worried about her right now, which I definitely think that she could go home this week and doesn't even realize it. Like, she's not campaigning at all. Let me be clear. She doesn't know that it's happening. She doesn't know that there's a possibility that she could go home this week. Beyond that, there are people that don't like her for whatever reason. I mean, like, I have no idea why Vanessa doesn't like Brooke, or why, I mean, to a lesser extent, I don't understand why Carol doesn't like Brooke. I sort of get it, but again, I don't, like, in the grand scheme of things, I don't know why she's that put out with her, or why she thinks she's a liar. But she has just rubbed some people the wrong way, and both her and Sheldon, being such introverts, here's the thing. This is the good story for Brooke. I feel like she's aware of some of her faults, and that is not true of everybody in this house. She's at least perceives the fact that being an introvert, she's going to have problems, and she's going to have issues such as, being over emotional that might cause people like Sheldon to doubt her or become frustrated with her. So I was glad about that, but oh my God, I this is why not all super fans are created equal, because even though she is a great player on paper, in practice, she's really having some problems.
I mean, I agree with everything you guys said, and I gave her a 4 as well. So there you go.
There you go.
I know we have a lot.
Sorry,
to get through, so I
I went on for a
Yeah.
while. I
just figured
apologize.
that, we have a lot to get through, so I figure if you guys kind of say it, I don't need to I don't know. Just
Yeah,
so we
and,
know.
and I saw
Get
somebody
through
asking,
it.
like, how does this rating system work? They're both 4s. I can say that for me, I think that Brooke is probably something like twice as likely to win the game over somebody like Chris. But Brooke is also very likely, like a 50% chance at least that she goes home this week. So that kind of cancels itself out, and she ends up at a 4. That's where it is for me.
If she wasn't on the block right now, I would be giving her a way better score.
Yeah. All right. So Brooke, the audience, a little bit higher on Brooke. Brooke's certainly, I think, a favorite in the community, although a lot of people are also big fans of Blindsides. So that has some of them hoping that she leaves. But she is given a 5 by the audience. Also, something to consider is that the audience has been voting all day, which means that some of them voted before all of this talk of the vote flip really started to coalesce. So that's something else to consider when talking about the audience rating. So there you go, a 5 from the audience, but that's not going to change the overall average score here for Brooke, which is also a 4. Let's move on to Michael, who is on the block and maybe like slightly more likely to go home right now. But I talked about, like, I felt like the odds when he first went on the block were like 95% to 5%. And then after last night, it moved to like 70-30. Right now, I'm like 55-45, I think is where I'm at in terms of Michael's chance to be evicted. And he's got a lot of problems. But Melissa, let's start with you this time.
Well, I have a quick question. If I submitted my ratings earlier, that mean I can change them?
You can change them, yeah.
Because I submitted my ratings before really I knew about this whole like flip possibility. Although now I'm hearing that the flip is not happening and he's gonna go, but who knows what's actually gonna happen. But so I voted then, and so I gave him a 2 originally because I was like, well, he's going home and I don't think he handled himself well on the block and under pressure. So I was like, this guy's not good at all. But I was still thinking, maybe there's a possibility he doesn't get a 1. But now with it being a little more, who knows, I kind of want to give him a 3 because while I still think he did a terrible job while on the block, and he spoke poorly to the HOH, and he was making enemies left and right. I don't know. I just don't like the way he's behaving and the way he's talking about like berating an 8-year-old and all that sort of stuff. It's just, I don't like it, and I don't think it bodes well for his future gameplay and also performing under pressure. So, I'm just gonna give him a 3 since there's now more of a chance that he will stay.
Yeah, I'm with you. I gave him a 3 as well. I think that, he had potential as a player, I think, but I think this experience is going to shape him in a negative direction. He was certainly perfectly fine with the idea of blindsiding Min and not telling Min anything about the blindside ahead of time. But now that it's been done to him, this is going to shape how he views the game as a whole. And he's going to feel like he needs to be consistent with his whining from before. And so he's going to probably continue with that style of gameplay from this point forward, which will both hurt him and the show, I think. And on top of that, he does have very tight bonds with his alliance members, but he doesn't really get out and socialize with anybody else. He spends almost all of his time with either JL or Maddie, and the only reason he's even talking to anybody right now is because he has to campaign, and even then he still spends at least 50%, if not more, of his time with his allies. So I definitely don't see that changing, even if he does stay. I think, again, there's a small amount of potential there, but he might have been ruined by this experience here.
Yeah, actually, I gave him a 2. I'm not even as high as you guys are, apparently. I know that you said you feel like it's 55-45. Actually, in my gut of guts, I do not believe he's going to stay. I feel like he's going to go because ultimately I feel like the first HOH, as we talked about before, is a referendum on the HOH itself. And Chris has been a pretty amiable guy. Like, I don't think anybody really dislikes Chris. I know they dislike Kyle, but they don't dislike Chris. And so in the end, I think that Chris is probably going to get his way because people don't hate him enough to be able to want to be able to stab him in the back, which is what would happen if they kept Michael in this instance. So it's a 2 for me. And I also cannot overstate enough how upset I am about his overall attitude. I remember watching Sequester, and there was a guy on there who was like, it's okay for me to backstab you and do this to you and lie to you, but if it's done to me, then there's gonna be hell to pay. I'm gonna let people know about it, right? And in the end, you're like how can you be so hypocritical? But at least this person was self-aware. But Michael is not self-aware, and that really, really bugs me in evaluating him for this cast. Like, he's such a fish out of water. Taryn is so correct. He doesn't really campaign. He doesn't even really talk with other people that he doesn't even have to talk to. I will say, at least he's talking to other people now, but it's a little bit fake to me, and it comes off as a little bit desperate.
Yeah. The audience agrees with Melissa and myself, though they gave him a 3, although it was very close. We actually came very close to giving him a 2 here. But it is a 3 from the audience, which is an overall average of 3. But let's move on to John Luke, one of his allies in the Evictors. Come on, bro. Like, what are we doing here? Are we like giving me some kind of number? Isn't that like a number of pizza slices I get? It's John Luke. Definitely an interesting player so far. I actually feel like John Luke has potential in the game. He's definitely a bit of an airhead. But I think that if Michael leaves and John Luke doesn't get sniped by somebody like Kyle next week, I think he has some amount of potential. I think he can be a very loyal guy. He's a very social guy. A lot of people really like John Luke. And he's, I think, also capable in competitions. We'll see how good he is in mental comps. I think he talked about like, no, I'm like seriously actually really smart, like, you know, but we'll see. So I think he's got potential. I think he can do well. Not in a great spot right now, though. I gave him a 4. Brent, what did you think?
Yeah, I feel like Bill Hall has it right in the chat. JL has Fabio upside. That's what there is here. Like, the people around him are going to get picked off, and he's a likable guy, and you might kind of forget about him, and then they might have other fish to fry, and he's a good dude, and maybe you could vote for him at the end. He says he's intelligent. Remember, this is the guy who was like the Clark Kent journalist at the beginning of the season, so I'm sure he has some amount of intelligence, but he doesn't have any game intelligence. Like, he's a good guy within the house, but he doesn't have any sense of what he should be doing on a game level. So I actually gave him a 3. I don't particularly care for his position right now. I do think there's a good chance he could get picked off next week if things move on the track that they're moving on now, and somebody who's relatively loyal to Kyle gets HOH. I think that they could go after the remnants of the Evictors and put up somebody like JL and, you know, Maddie up on the block. And if JL doesn't win the veto, I certainly think he could go home unless somebody else blows up, which is certainly possible.
All right, yeah. Melissa.
I gave him a 3 as well. I think that right now he's not in a good spot and he's not playing the game very well, but I could see a situation where he's one of those people who learns the game as he goes and becomes, you know, pretty good at it, as long as I think Michael needs to leave, and I think he needs to be a little distance from that, like, tight foursome. I think when Michael's there, it's just the two of them hanging out, and I don't feel like they're doing.
That's true.
They're like, yeah, and I feel like it takes up all his time, and he's not putting any energy or thought into the game. And I think also if Michael leaves, I think that might be the kick in the pants. He needs to be like, oh, like, we're not in a good spot. Like, I could leave at any minute, and maybe that'll be a motivating factor in learning to play the game. So I'm not like totally down on him yet, but I do think that like he needs that push to do better and to have a good chance to win.
I feel like Adam Lupien in the chat has it right, where he says that Kyle getting outed greatly benefits JL. Like, there was so much firepower being directed at the Evictors, even after Michael is going to be going home. Like, they were talking about, okay, well, we're going to go after JL. We're going to put him on the block, probably with Maddie, maybe Ree as a potential backdoor or like a replacement nominee. But now that Kyle is getting all of this firepower incoming, it's like, I don't think it's certainly not a surety that JL is going to see the block next week. And that is a big improvement for his fortunes.
Yeah. The audience agrees with the two of you over me in this instance. The audience gave him a 3 as well, which means he is also going to sit there at an average of 3. So let's move on to the third in the Evictor Alliance here. It's Maddie, who is in a showmance with Michael. They have been hooking up a little bit. That she is talking about. I'm so sad, and I just don't ever really get this sad. But I'm so sad that you're leaving, Michael. I'm just gonna miss you. She's very, very upset about it. She's actually a pretty effective campaigner for him. I think that most of the success he's found in campaigning has stemmed from Maddie. She's the kind of the most game game aware of the four of them. She's has the most experience with the show. That said, she still has a lot of faults. Definitely, doesn't exactly have her head in the game most of the time, as she is too preoccupied with her alliance and Michael in particular. So there's a lot here with Maddie. Melissa, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm a little torn on her because I feel like if Michael leaves, I think she's in a better position. And so I'm kind of thinking of this in terms of like Michael leaving, but I guess like we don't know what's going to happen. But I do think that if he leaves, similar to Jean-Luc, I think that she gets put in a better position. She gets the push she needs to actually play. And I do think that she does pretty well socially. I know there's been a little bit of drama with her, with the Min Lee situation, but I do think she handled that conversation with Min Lee pretty well. And I could see a situation where that helps her down the line. And also similarly, when she had the conversation with Chris, I thought she did a pretty good job, making him feel good, aside from when he asked, like, who would you vote to evict or whatever, or who would you save? And she had to, like, she didn't answer right away. But I do think that I think she understands what she has to do. And I feel like she knows that she has to, like, campaign and play the game. And so I'm seeing a path forward for her. We'll just have to see what happens. But I think if Michael leaves this week, it puts her in a much better position. So I'm going to give her a 4.
All right. Yeah, I think that she is in a spot kind of similar to Jean-Luc. In fact, I think very similar, where, a lot of the people who are trying to destroy the evictors, they're also trying to pick their one person from the evictors that they want to bring along. And for some, it's Rhi. For some, it's Jean-Luc. So like Brooke and Sheldon, they like Jean-Luc. They want to kind of bring him along, but Kyle doesn't. He wants Jean-Luc on. He'd rather bring Rhi in. That might all change given all of the information that's coming out. But Maddie doesn't have the relationships that Jean-Luc or Rianne do, but I actually think that could benefit her if she survives the onslaught. Now, she's a big target for a lot of people because of that. Now, certainly Jean-Luc or Rianne could go. They're sort of bigger targets for the people that want to pick that group apart, but she's definitely going to wind up on the block if somebody from the KVBS group, which doesn't really exist anymore, if somebody in that sort of area wins, she could be in trouble. But if she survives, I think she can really make it for the long haul, because she won't really have many allies left, and she's still a somewhat capable player. I gave her a 4 here. I could very easily see this drop to like a 2 next week, because it looks like she's in some deep trouble. But I think it could also stick at around a 4, maybe even go up to a 5 if she finds herself into a better position moving forward. Brent, what are your thoughts?
She is so frustrating to me. I mean, like, basically the majority of this week so far has been an amalgam of Maddie going, I don't know. Like, I can't stand, like, does she have the cojones to play this game or not? Like, it seemed like she did. Like, this was one of the first people that Taryn and I watched when we were going through the cast on the Twitch stream, and she looked like a competitor, okay? She looked like she was somebody who was feisty. She wanted to get in there. She wanted to play. But instead, she's just been in a showmance. I mean, and I did call that. This is the girl who was like, I don't want to say I like boys, but I like boys. And I'm like, okay, yeah, we got it, chick. Okay. But still, I expected more from her in terms of gameplay. Like, as I said to the chat, with or without Michael, I think she is pretty much a terrible player. She is trouble. She cannot keep her mouth shut. She does have some good relationships with some people, but she's so aghast at gameplay, it makes it seem as she's always 2 steps behind everybody else. So I don't really care for her position, and I gave her a pretty bad score. I gave her a 3.
All right. The audience did agree with you, Brent. They also gave her a 3, but she is going to average out here at a 4. All right, let's move on to Rianne, the final member of the Evictors. Rianne is definitely in an interesting position in this group. She talks the least amount of game, but talks to the most amount of people. She is somebody that, if blink and you miss it, but she actually talks to a lot of people about personal things. She has a lot of personal conversations. She has them all over the house. There's not really anybody that she doesn't have personal conversations with, apart from perhaps Sheldon and Brooke. And so she has developed those relationships, and that's why a lot of people feel like they might be able to bring her in. She is also the person that reacted the least to Michael's back door and is positioned to benefit from it the most. Now, she did have some association with Kyle, which was hurting her with some of the other women, but she's shown a willingness to be flexible there as well, and so they're not super concerned with Rianne. They're more concerned with people like Maddie or Sue, or whichever other woman they're mad at the moment. So she's actually not in a terrible spot. I just doubt her strategic instincts. She's definitely got a great social game. I don't know if she has the chops strategically. One of the few strategic conversations I've seen her in that didn't involve her allies was with Jamar, where Jamar was trying to drop some hints that he wanted to target Kyle, and she completely misread the situation, asked if he was threatening her, and the conversation did not go well. If that's an indication of the kind of game that she's able to talk with people who aren't allied to her, I don't think that's a great indication of where she's going to be. So all of that said, I actually gave Rianne a 5. I don't think she's really in much danger. I think Sheldon and Brooke, who are the people who want to target her the most, they've got bigger fish to fry right now. They don't know it yet, but they very much have bigger fish to fry. And they're going to have a lot of allies, even if they do still want to go after Rhi, who are going to try and push them away from Rhi and on to people like Kyle or John Luke or whoever. All of their allies are going to say, no, we don't want it to be Rianne. So I think it's going to be hard for them to get Rianne out. So I gave her a 5. I think that this is, again, she's a player, could really go down, could really go back up. Very much the just sort of average do nothing score here. It's a 5. It's not great. It's not bad. It's just 5. It's just Rianne, and she's just there. So Brent, what do you think?
Yeah, ditto. I will say that, like, as Tyrion said, she's certainly the most likely to last. I think that her social game is what I'm basically grading here. As I told the chat, she annoys me greatly because this is an incredibly chaotic, messy, gamer, hardcore cast. And that is so not Rhi. She is just not like the rest of the people there. She is so out of place. She's a fish out of water. She drives me crazy because she's not up to speed on how fast this game is being played. And even if she could get up to speed, I don't believe there's a universe where she would then become the gamer that I need her to be. So I recognize her social game and the fact that she's going to last long. If she somehow did get to the end of the game, I do think there's a chance she could win. So I have to acknowledge that. And I came around to a 5 as well.
All right, Melissa.
And that's the highest score I've given out so far. I just want to say that.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, I agree with what you guys are saying. I am questioning whether she has the strategic skills, but I do recognize that she has some sort of
spoiler. She doesn't.
So I'm gonna give her a 4.
All right. The audience also went with a 4 for Rianne. They were not super high on Rianne. Probably. I mean, I have to imagine that if you're not like as glued to the feeds as I am, you probably haven't even seen her. So it's going to be hard to give her, I think, a good rating there. All right, let's move on to Angie, really knocking out all the top players at once. Angie,
making the cast look real bad.
Angie is definitely. She's not really involved in much, right? She came into the house. She's a big fan of the show. She wants to play the game, but socially, it's just not there. We talked about how Brooke is kind of underplaying. If Brooke is underplaying, then Angie is hiding under a rock because she is nowhere to be found most of the time. That said, I do want to be maybe a little bit more positive on Angie than most people might be. I actually do think that she has a decent strategic mind to her. She kind of knows what to say and what not to say in most conversations in a strategic sense. It's the social game that's really dragging her down. It's the opposite of Rianne, actually, because, you know, she actually had a conversation today on the feeds talking to people like Hira and Jamar saying like, hey, why don't we form a middle group? And I was like, that's advanced strategy. That's from season 6, right? Like, she was like, why, we don't need to pick a side, we're just on the bottom of either side that we pick. Why don't we just, the people in the middle, come together and like as a group play both sides to off of each other? Like, that's great stuff. The problem is her social game sucks, so they all ignored her. So that's not great. But she does have some relationships, right? She's got Chris, who really likes her, and would work some amount for her. She does have a couple of other people who might use her as a pawn, but would never target her. She's certainly not a target to really anybody except for perhaps Min, who definitely has her hands full right now. So I think her biggest problem is social game and respect. But I was maybe a little bit generous here. I gave her a 4. I think that she...
What?
It's just the first real week of the game. There's a lot of room to grow or fall here for Angie, and a lot of game to be played. For all we know, she could be great at mental comps and really start to win some respect along the way. And I think she's the kind of player that could actually maybe do something with that in a strategic sense. So that's where I stand. Melissa, what do you think?
So here's the thing, is that I don't see Angie on the feeds a lot. When I see her on the feeds, I like her and I feel like she has fun conversations and I enjoy watching her and I don't mind her at all. I think she's great. But then when I see other people on the feeds talking about her, I'm like, wait, are we talking about the same person? Like, what is going on here? Because they're all so down on her. They're all so negative. They don't like her at all. They're like, she doesn't get along with us, like, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, are we watching different things? Like, I don't know what I'm missing, but clearly I'm missing something. And the fact that all the conversations that talk about Angie are about how people don't like her, like, that's really concerning for me. So, like, we'll see what happens as this progresses, but I just feel like the social aspect of it, for whatever reason, is just not there. And so I'm going to give her a 2.
That's good to hear. I was a little concerned that you were going to do something crazy there, like Taryn did, because I mean, like Taryn, when she eventually like does what you're saying that she's capable of, then I will adjust her score to match. But until then, she has been an absolute nothing in the house. And even when she's tried to do something, people don't like her. The number one part of Big Brother 101, the social game. You've got to get people to like you to have any way to move hearts and minds. She is totally incapable of doing that. I don't see how you could go any higher than a 2 here. I'm not giving her the paddle, but it's a 2.
I mean, I think that we should remember that a player like Hira in Big Brother Canada 7 often got 4s because we knew that they were in it for the long haul and that something could happen eventually to change their standing. And I think that matters because Angie is probably in it for the long haul and will have a lot of opportunity to change her game for the better, whereas some other players are in much more immediate danger and won't have that opportunity. And so for me, when I see uncertainty in a player, I'm going to gravitate toward the middle rather than the extremes, right? So the less sure I am about them, the more I'm coming closer to a 5, because I don't want to say it's too bad. I don't want to say it's too good. It's still, that's where the uncertainty lies for me. So a middle rating is usually that for me. So that's why Angie's a 4. The audience, though, split the difference between us here. They gave her a 3.
I will say that Angie can serve some looks, though. She can serve some looks, and that's what I'm here for. So, okay.
All right. Let's move on to Carol. Let's talk about Carol. Really serving us up. Brent, why don't you start us off here with Carol?
I mean, it's another 2 for me with Carol. I mean, I am so frustrated with this woman. Like, she talked such a big game coming into the house, and then she got a little boo-boo on her chin, and she's like, oh, I want to go home. I want to go home. I'm so upset. Like, I miss my family. And then, like I said, at first she was saying it was a medical issue, and then she was like, no, it's not just a medical issue. It's not just the fact that I hurt my tooth. It's not just the fact that I'm having dietary problems. Whatever. You know, coming into the Big Brother house, there's going to be have-nots. But also, I miss my family. I don't feel like I fit in here. I don't feel like I have a chance to win. Whatever. Like, shut up! I'm so frustrated that they didn't let her quit because now I feel like we're going to be stuck with her. We're going to be stuck with her. She's going to be here for a long, long time. She's going to make it to the end of the game.
Oh, it's not worth it to target her.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. And then she's going to make it to the end of the game, and then she's going to get cut or maybe like take up one of the 2 chairs in the final 2. Like, I'm so mad. Like, I will say this about her, though, okay? The one way she can turn it around is revenge. It appears to me that is the one thing that Carol actually, like, motivates Carol is revenge. She is so motivated by the fact that Kyle had the audacity to say he would throw her bag over the stairs to help her pack on the way out, which, of course, she was going to quit. She forgets that in the retelling that she was going to quit. But then, like, she's so mad at Kyle because Kyle was, like, aghast that she was going to quit, which he should have been aghast that she's going to quit. But she's like, how dare he say something like that to me? When I'm like, honey, you need to look in the mirror. So it's a 2, and it is a very close to the paddle on this one. I am so upset with Carol right now.
Yeah, the only reason I didn't give her a 1 is because, again, there's a long season ahead of us, a long time for this to wash off of her image. But for right now, the damage this does to your reputation if you're sitting there in the final 2 is really hard to wash off. There's a reason people were so mad at her at the time, and she's gonna have to play a really killer game in order to, like, win the respect of her peers in order to shake this off. And so even though I do think she is also probably in it for the long haul now, her chances of winning very low in my opinion, and I also went with a 2. Melissa?
Yay!
2 for me.
All right, the audience, they just don't have it in their heart to go down to a 2. They gave her a 3.
You fakers.
All right, there you go. Let's move on to Hira. Definitely an interesting player to talk about here. Melissa, where do you stand on Hira?
Well, let me see. I have to look at my ratings list. Okay, so for Hira, this is a tough one because I've seen some, like, streaks of playing the game and streaks of brilliance and, like, streaks of, like, oh, he might have this, and, like, he might form this side alliance, or he might do this or that. But what concerns me is that he was already on the block, so people will probably feel I feel like once you're on the block, people feel comfortable putting you on the block again, so I feel like that could be concerning. However, he did win the veto, so that means he is athletic, or he can compete against people. But that also is a double-edged sword, because people might be like, oh, now he can compete. He's good, whatever. So I'm a little torn. I don't know enough about him, I feel, to get a good read. It didn't seem like he really connected that well, to the point where people wanted to bring him into things. Although maybe now that they know he's sticking around, that might change, and he's having more conversations with people. So, that might be something that's good for him. So I'm going to give him a 4 just because I'm a little unsure.
Yeah, I've been on a journey with Hira today. We had to get our ratings in a little bit early. That's why we've been talking about, like, sending in our ratings. It's for the sake of the website, which we'll be talking about soon. Not going to happen every time. Usually we do them just completely live, and that's what we will be doing in the future. But earlier today, I set Hira down as a 3. I said, I don't love his game right now. I don't love what he's doing, trying to work with the 4. He seems incapable of lying and pretending that he's with people when he's actually not. So he's gonna hitch his ride to that. Everybody's gonna know, and he's gonna go down with that ship. But then I saw him talk with Brooke and Sheldon, and he was willing to lie to them. He was willing to say, you know what? I'm with you guys. I'm with you guys to the end. And they believed him because he talks up this loyalty thing all the time. And so he also now has a connection with Min, which we'll see where that goes. But that in connection with trying to work with the 4 and trying to work with Brooke and Sheldon, if he manages to pull it off and the vote flip doesn't happen, I actually feel like he might be in a really good spot. He's also proven he's capable of winning competitions. He's a very likable guy. And now all of a sudden, I had been thinking, okay, a 3. No, he's up to a 4. And then as I thought about it more, I was like, I think he's a 5. I think I've gone, in the course of one day, I've gone all the way up to a 5. I really actually like what Hira's doing to some degree. Now, this is kind of contingent on, I think it's also bad for his game to take Brooke out of the game and keep Michael. I think that would be a bad thing for him. He would be at least the 5th in that alliance, but more likely like the 6th at best, and he'd be a target, and he ruins his social connections with the other side. I think think that would be disastrous for his game if it happens. If it doesn't happen, I think he could even go higher. So I'm here for a 5 with Hira. Brent, what about you?
Yeah, I also submitted my ratings earlier today, and I gave him my original score, and I'm going to stick with it. And in my score is a 3, by the way. But my thinking in keeping with that score is the fact that, look, for the majority of this week, up until like a couple hours ago, he was absolutely not playing the game. Like, the game was leaving him behind. I didn't even know if it was possible he could get in the game. If he didn't win the veto, there was a possibility he could be voted out this week, for heaven's sake. He just didn't have an ability to connect with so many of the crazy, chaotic gamers in this house, because that's not him. Now, I will say, I enjoy him as a person. He's a very cool guy. I love watching him on the feeds. He doesn't bother me at all. And I do think that after watching him a little bit later today, he got up to speed. And as Terrence said, I was surprised that he was able to lie to people. He said he wasn't going to do that. So there is possibility for his score to increase. And I certainly think that it could increase as time goes on. However, as Melissa said, he was used as a pawn this week. And because of that, I think that there is a possibility he could be used as a pawn next week. He's not anybody's number 1, 2, 3, or 4. He's on down the list of where people might need to use a pawn. So I don't care for his place in the game right now, and I'm hoping it improves. He's a cool guy.
All right. The audience was with me on this one. The audience gave Hira a 5 out of 10. You'll find this again if you're new to this process. The audience tends to vote the likable players a little bit higher than the unlikable. We try to avoid that. We say to the audience, no bias. You're talking about strategy here, but you can't fully eliminate it, even from us sometimes, especially us when we're talking about Brent. So that's how it works. A 5 for Hira from the audience. Not to disqualify it. I agree with it. All right, let's talk about Sue. I'm very excited to talk about Sue. I think Sue is a very interesting player. Now, Sue is in one of the best spots in the house. She is in the 6 Feet Under Alliance, even though it's not really a thing anymore. She also has connections to Chris. She's in with Kyle. The problem for Sue is that she has kind of lost Vanessa and Carol, and now Min as well. Min doesn't like Sue because of Sue's relationship with Jamar, but Sue does have a good relationship with Jamar, which is good for Sue for the most part. It's kind of a trade-off. I think overall she benefits more from her relationship with Jamar than she loses because of how it affects Min. And she has a great relationship with Sheldon and Brooke, which is also very good for her. She also just displays a great... she's great on her feet. She gets into a lot of situations that can be uncomfortable, where things fly at her all the time. She's always able to pivot. She doesn't lose her cool, which is very interesting because obviously in the premiere episode or the second episode, whichever it was, we saw her lose her cool when she found out that Min was trying to get rid of her. But I haven't seen that on the feeds yet. And she's always she always plays it cool. She's always able to pivot and understand what she needs to do in that conversation. She's very good socially. She's got a great head on her shoulders. I really like what Sue is doing. I gave her a 7 out of 10. That's where I stand on Sue. Melissa, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you said about her. I'm impressed with her. I really was not expecting it, especially considering that usually someone who they play up in the intro videos as being like super, super, super talkative and just like kind of wild and out there usually have trouble getting along once they get in the house. So I've been very impressed with her. I feel like, they really did her a disservice in those intro videos by making it seem like she's just like insane and like just talk. Because I haven't really seen that. I've seen like normal social talking. And I really enjoy her. I think that she's smart. And so I don't feel confident enough to give her a really high score just because I don't know what's going to happen. But I feel like so far she's playing well. So I feel better about her than just like a middling 5. So I'm going to give her a 6.
All right, Brent.
Yeah, this is the highest score of the night for me, and it will be the highest score of the night. I gave Sue a 7. I am so psyched about this person. This is one of the people who was originally spoiled to be one of the first 4 who was in danger. And I looked at the other 3 people who were in danger. It was like, Minley, Crazy Chris, and, Nico at that time had a little bit of, something to give. And I was like, well, Suzanne can go. And Kirsten McInnes was on Twitter going, how dare you? She's like, I totally believe in her. She's going to give us everything. And I'm like, oh, well, let me take a look at her then. And then she has totally been proven right because she is amazing. I love Sue. Not only is she a great character on the show, she's a great character within the game. She's so capable of a player. And it's great to see that somebody who has a big personality, which I saw you talking with Bruno about this, that like you have to, like so often in Big Brother, you have to stay in your lane. You're either a gamer or you're a character. And I feel like Sue really gets them both. She is such a well-liked person within the house. And yeah, there have been a couple people, like I could have argued for me to drop my score a little bit as time went on today, because for the first time I started hearing people if they weren't going to target Sue, they're a little upset with Sue. Later on down today. But like with Hira, I ended up not changing my score, and I originally gave her a 7 because I really believe in her ability to go. She's going to go long in this game, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, and I want to say this about Sue, that that she is in the kind of position right now where, yes, people are talking about her. In fact, I think I just saw that Min and Carol and Vanessa, I don't know if it was 2 of them or all 3 of them, were talking, saying Sue is basically the female Kyle, that she is all over the place and that she is trying to manipulate and control. And yeah, that's not good for her. But there's a reason she's a good player and she's in a good position, and that reason is that she has put herself in a position where even though she is being called out in this moment, she's not so hated that she can't talk her way out of it at some point. And more importantly, even if somebody decides they want to take a shot at somebody like Sue, Kyle, Chris, Sheldon, all bigger targets than Sue. And so she is insulated there. Who's going to vote out Sue over Kyle? Nobody. Sue over Chris? Maybe. That's probably the worst one of those. Sue over Sheldon? That's also a maybe, but Sheldon right now probably a little bit more endangered than Sue in that spot. People are very mad at Sue. But again, I trust in her capability to get herself out of it and her positioning. So that's why I like Sue there at a 7.
She has the skills to be able to navigate the different changes in the game that are coming down the pike. Yep.
All right. Sue from the audience got a 6 out of 10. Not as confident as us in Sue. I think that'll change. I think Sue's
they'll be like me. It'll grow on her, or she'll grow on them. You know what I mean? Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about Kyle. What an interesting player to watch so far on the feeds. Brent, let's start with you on Kyle.
I will say that I think that Kyle has lost as much support as Bernie Sanders did in Mississippi today. Like, this is not good, folks. He is not doing good with the public in the Big Brother Canada house. Kyle,
I feel like with the public or the Big Brother Canada.
I know, right? I don't know many people on Twitter that like Kyle, but within the house, he's making enemies left and right. I'm not going to give him the paddle. I feel like I should. I want to give him the paddle, but I gave him a 2. And the reason I'm giving him a 2 is because even though he's played pretty messy over the past 48 hours and pretended to not know about the blind side, even though it's obvious that he knew about it, it is amazing to me that somebody who acts like this and struts around like this and is the figurehead of a few different alliances thinks that he can go the long haul in this game. There's no way that this dude is getting to the end of the game. At this point, I think he goes next week. I really do. I think there are so many people that want Kyle out that unless he wins HOH or somebody like Brooke or Sheldon win HOH, he is going to hit the block or be backdoored. And I don't even know if he has the votes to stay. So it's not good. Not good, Bob. Not good.
I'm honestly shocked with the way he's playing the game. I really thought that from his interviews, I thought he was going to be this nice, teddy bear kind of guy, and that everybody was going to, some group or something was going to pull him in, and he was going to then kind of coast for the first half and then maybe turn it on. I really thought that was the case, but he is stepping out there in front, and I feel like it's always a bad move to step out there in front this early. And also if you look like that, because he already, I think, is someone that you'd perceive as a threat just by looking at him. And then you
Yeah.
add to that he's like out there in front of everything and like conducting all these different people to do things or whatever. It's not smart.
He's so hot, and I don't mean that in a like a sexual way. He's running so hot in the game right now. He's got to turn it down to like a 5 or a 4, but he's running on like 11 the entire time, and he can't turn the switch off. So it's gonna catch up with you, dude. Come on.
Yeah, no, I agree. And so I'm going to give him a 3 just because I don't think he's a dumb guy. And so I think that there's a chance that if he gets put in a bad situation, he could figure it out. But for now, I do think that he's in a real tight spot.
Yes. I'm probably going to be just a little bit higher on Kyle than the
How
two
dare
of you.
you.
I think that he has definitely run into some major issues. But to be fair, if it wasn't for Vanessa being who Vanessa is, who I don't think any of us saw it coming. I don't blame him for not seeing it coming. He'd still be in a great spot. Like, she is single-handedly the reason he is in this position. And I think that he got into that position for a reason. There is a side to Kyle that I don't think we've really seen. A side that won those people over in the first place. They talk about it all the time, that he's an emotional guy and he really connected to people in telling his story as an addict and how he recovered. And I don't know if he's talked about that in particular, but he's definitely told people about his struggles in life and connected with people. And when they come to him for comfort, he is pretty good with them, apart from the weird touching. He's like emotionally capable of setting them right and making them feel better. The problem is that he is going about the game in a wrong way, and he has lost Vanessa, and she's really spoiled all of his relationships. But if he survives, I do think that he has the ability to recover. This is a position where, yes, everybody has now turned on Kyle, but if they put him on the block and he finds out that everybody has betrayed him, and then he wins the veto and he survives that week, and then like they have to send somebody else home, and now they're starting to turn on each other, and everybody's already counting Kyle out to some degree because he's already lost all of his relationships. He's no longer as threatening. I could see him making his way back in. I think that's going to be difficult for him, but I do think it's possible. And that would give him a 3 for me, the bad position he's in. But the fact that this vote might flip also, I think, adds a little bit of a boost to his rating for me. I was initially thinking about something lower, but the more this vote flip came into being, the more I thought, I really feel like this benefits Kyle, because it really forces people to work with him who weren't in on the vote flip. People like Sheldon, people like Chris, who otherwise would bounce and leave Kyle to his death, are now going to have to work with him because they were left out with him. And with, again, everything being out in the open, it gives him an opportunity to start to win people back. And so if this vote flip happens, I think he's in an even better spot. And so for me, it went up and up a little bit more. It went up to a 4 for me. He's definitely in a lot of danger heading into next week, but there are still a small amount of people that wouldn't target him, and even if they do, he could still somehow slip away and somehow manage to get back into some kind of position in the game. So yeah, for me, it's a 4.
I will say, Icy Peg in the chat says, if Kyle was self-aware, he wouldn't put his hairy ass on the counter while people were cooking. Just saying.
Can I just say, like, the cooking stuff often is bothersome with the like the cleanliness, right? Like the hygiene of it in the Big Brother house. But watching Kyle in his like undies, and that's it, like shirtless with all of that hair, like leaning over a skillet, I'm just like, I hope that's for yourself at least, because then at least I can be like, he's just self-contained here.
It's not for himself. It's for everybody else, because even though he's a have-not, he was cooking for people, and he let everybody know that he was cooking for them. And then Minley was like, "Oh my God, thank you, Kyle. If you haven't seen this clip of Minley, I'm not gonna do it, but oh my God, if you haven't seen this clip of Minley thanking Kyle and pretending to kiss his ass, oh my God, they are so over him. And then all the stuff that happened over the past 48 hours has just totally added to that. He's such a buffoon. Oh my God.
Yeah, so that's what's going on there. The audience actually is with me on this. I was surprised. Usually somebody like Kyle pretty hated, but the audience also gave Kyle a 4. So that's going to land Kyle there at an average of 3 still, I believe. All right, let's move on to Sheldon. Let's talk about Sheldon. Melissa, let's start with you.
Well, let's see. Sheldon, I feel good about Sheldon. I think that he's kind of what we thought he would be. I do think, however, that I've heard his name come up more than I've heard Sue's name come up. And also I do feel like he's been caught in a few things that he's said, which makes me a little nervous. But I don't think it's like anything that he can't get over or get past, because I do think he's really smart. And I've been impressed with him so far. I think he's very even keel, and I think that he has aligned himself with good people. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. But and similarly with Sue, I don't feel comfortable giving him higher than a 6 at this point, just because I don't know. So I'm going to give him a 6.
All right. Let me just say this. I love Sheldon. I really, really like this guy. From honestly, the second I saw his preseason interview, I was like, this guy is just like me. Like, I already know the answer to the question at the end of the season, like, which house guest is most like you. It's by far Sheldon, like, to the point where, like, I feel like it's been a very long time since I feel like I've related to somebody on the show as much as I do Sheldon. And I really like watching him talk to people. He's really charming when he wants to be, but he also is an introvert. And so even though I really, really love him, his game has left a little bit to be desired here for me. He like Brooke, defaults to just kind of hanging out with Brooke, which, like I said, it's very similar to me. In group situations, I like to gravitate toward an individual who I relate to and can just chat with. But you can't play Big Brother like that. You can be an introvert and do very well on Big Brother. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that being an introvert is bad. But you have to be able to play the game that is presented to you. And Sheldon has trouble working himself up to those conversations. Like I said, he can be very, very charming when he turns it on, but he only has a limited amount of juice that he's able to use to turn that on. And so that's a problem for him. And like Brooke, I think he's worried about overplaying, and so he's feeling just a little bit too confident. All of the criticisms I had for Brooke, I have similar ones for Sheldon. I think he's more capable than Brooke. I think he's maybe even just a little bit smarter than her when it comes to playing the game. But he does have these faults. He is just too comfortable. He set himself up, and he's like, I don't want to overplay, and so I'm just kind of try to ride this for a little bit. He tries not to overextend. He says, look, I want to bring Hira in. I want to make that relationship, but I don't want to overextend myself. I don't want to have to manage too many things. We saw Tyler in Big Brother 20, right? Tyler had Caitlyn, he had Sam, he had level 6, he had he had all kinds of different people and things that he was trying to juggle, and it really burnt him out, but he worked through it, because if you're gonna play that kind of game, you have to do the work. Every single season, we say the same thing in the beginning of the season. When Tyler is playing really hard, you and Melissa, Brent, are saying he's playing too hard. It's going to come crashing down. And I'm like, I don't know about that. And then we see that he succeeds, right? Anthony, last season, beginning of the season, we had a couple of people on the podcast come on and say, no, he's playing too hard. He's going to crash and burn. But we saw him succeed. Same thing with Dane. Same thing with Derek in season 16. It always happens. So there's a perception that overplaying will cost you. But in reality, if you are going to play this kind of game, that's the game that you need to play. And you need to play it hard. You can't let your foot off the pedal. And that's what Sheldon is doing. But the biggest difference between him and Brooke is that he's not on the block. And probably is not going to go home this week, right? It's not really any case where that happens unless he quits, which I don't see happening, right? So even if Brooke goes home, that's a hard lesson learned, and I think he can learn from it and adapt accordingly, right? Even if Brooke stays, hopefully he'll eventually learn about what happened and what's been going on, and he'll be able to learn and adapt to the situation. If he does not learn and adapt, this score that I'm going to give him now will go down. If he does adapt, I think it has the potential to go up. But for right now, I'm at a 6 here with Sheldon. Very complicated thoughts on him as a player. I think he has a lot of potential, but he's just afraid to use it. So
yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with many of those things that you said about Sheldon. The thing that he doesn't understand is he has to dance with the girl that brought him and to the dance. And if you're going to overplay, if you're going to play a hard game like this, you have to continue to nurture that game and play that game. And it just seems like he's going in and out a little bit because he's worried about overplaying. Also, I have noticed that he has a low tolerance for bullshit, especially when it comes to Min Lee. Like, they were talking and he was just getting a little frustrated with her because she was like egging him on about like what he would do and who he would nominate. And he was like, probably you, or, you know, like, or like he held out for a little while, and then she kept pushing at him. And eventually he was just like, yeah, I might nominate you. Okay. Like, you know, like it could be you. Who knows? I don't know. Just kidding. But like, there wasn't. I didn't feel like that Min Lee thought that there was a laugh there. So it is evident to me that, and this is a thing in Big Brother. Like, oh my God, I don't know how many times I watched on Big Brother 16, Derek's constant like holding. Oh my God, what was her name? The chick, the one who ended up in third place.
Victoria.
I want to say Veronica, and I knew that wasn't right. Sorry. He held Victoria's hand and listened to all of her stupid bullshit. And eventually he was able to benefit from all of that he put in, all of that work that he put into the game. I don't know if Sheldon is the type of guy who's able to do that. So I'm going to give him a 6, and I'm hopeful, as Taryn is. This was my number 1 pick. I really like the guy. The other thing that bugs me about him, and I just want to say it on the podcast, is that Jamar is so loyal to Sheldon. Sheldon is not loyal to Jamar as much as he is other people. And I'm kind of bummed by that. But
he does feel very bad about it, at least.
Oh, I'm sure that makes Jamar feel better.
Sheldon is like, he was actually really like, he's like, Jamar's gonna hate me after the show. It's gonna be so bad. I feel so awful.
Jamar's gonna hate you. Twitter might hate you. God.
Yeah, this is also like a situation where like here I am being upfront about the fact that I really like Sheldon, which means that if he starts doing well in the future, people are gonna like discount all of my analysis of him. And if he starts to do poorly and I'm critical of him, they'll forget about it. So we'll see what happens. But here we are with Sheldon. The audience actually higher on Sheldon than all of us. They gave him a 7.
No.
They like Sheldon. People like Sheldon. Sheldon also self-aware enough to say, no, we're definitely the villains here. People, they're going to hate us.
Which is the reason why we don't hate him.
Right?
That is the reason why we don't hate him. I saw you tweet that out, Taryn. That was such a great observation. That is the reason why we don't hate you, because you're not saying, oh, we're the good guys. Like, we know people are rooting for us. Like the people that say that are always the idiots that we hate.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about Vanessa. Let's talk about Vanessa. Where do we stand on Vanessa? Brent, let's start with you.
Look, I have to tell you, in the history of Big Brother, let me say that again, okay? I have never seen a contestant who has been gifted with such a fabulous position in the game and then actively decided to torch that game left, right, and center. Like, this is not just a little bit of, oh, she doesn't know what she's doing. She is willingly just taking gasoline and pouring it all over her game. And the thing is, I've seen this sort of thing before, as Taryn talked about. Like, we remember Devon on Big Brother 18 when she was between two pairs, and we're thinking, how can you not know that that's an amazing position? At least Devon, I could follow her thought process. Now, it wasn't a thought process that I agreed with, but I understood it. Devon thought, oh, this is a terrible position for me to be in, so I need to do something about it, which makes sense if you go with the fact that she thinks it's a terrible position for her to be in, and thus she should do something about it. If you're in a terrible position, you should do something about it. But with Vanessa, she's in a fabulous position. She seems to like, I don't know what she thinks. She won't tell us what she thinks, but all of her plans are so nonsensical. Like, she'll do something with somebody and like try to incept the idea of like Min Lee trying to backdoor Kyle, and then it becomes a reality. But then at the same time, she's trying to get Kyle, who is loyal to her, against Min Lee. And she's making up things about Kyle, making up things about Min Lee, who at like 48 hours ago were her two closest allies in the house. The two people that loved Vanessa and liked her more than anything are Min Lee and Kyle. And yet Vanessa has done everything in her power to actively torch their games and her own game in the process. Now, let me say, is she actually as bad as the one that I'm giving her? Maybe. You can argue that. I'm going to argue that somebody like this, who is in such a position of strength in the game and then just pours all of the fuel that she can all over it and screws herself over for no sense whatsoever, deserves to get the worst possible score. Because what did you do with your time in the Big Brother game this week? You absolutely torched yourself. Okay? So have a paddle and have a seat. In fact, have several seats, Vanessa, because I can't understand what you're doing.
There you go. Melissa, what are your thoughts?
Okay, so
what did you give Vanessa? Let me look.
yeah, well, you know what? I'm going to stick with it because I'm of the mindset for now. We'll see what happens later. But I think that Vanessa is playing a style of game that's, as long as it's not me, I'm cool with whatever you guys are doing, and I'm going to throw everyone.
That's very.
That is sacrilegious to Sandra.
It's not what she's doing.
Exactly.
It's not what she's doing at all. Because
You
if it was anybody but me, she wouldn't have actively gotten her two biggest allies to target each other. If it was anybody but me, she would have just sat back and let the game play out as it was.
I think it's more like I want everyone to target everyone else as long as they're not targeting me. Like,
but they already weren't targeting her.
But I think that's the key. I think that's her thought process, is like, as long as everyone's targeting everyone else, they're not thinking about me. Maybe she didn't need to do that, but I'm just saying, I think that's...
I refuse.
Right?
I think that's what she's doing.
Vanessa is cuckoo for
This
Cocoa
is coming
Puffs,
from the same person who said that Christy was playing up the tiers.
And by it. I stand by my assessment.
Has since admitted that she definitely was not doing that.
Of course she's going to say that. Karen, you're snowed by her still? Wow.
Yeah, and you know what? The earth is flat.
Oh my God. Okay, for those of you who stuck around 2.5 hours in the podcast, I'm so glad you're still with us. So this is your reward right here. Okay.
This is what you got is startlingly amazing analysis from us. So honestly, I'm just saying, I think I see it. I think I see what she's doing. Everyone says they don't get it. They don't get it. Well, let me tell you, this is brilliant strategy. And that's why I'm giving her a 9. I'm just kidding. I'm not giving her a 9. But that would be really funny. She's getting a 4 from me. But, okay. I do think that, like, next week it could be real bad. But I could see something. And you know what? Most of this 4 is for her social game. Not necessarily her social game, but her social ability. I do feel like she's really good at like winning people over in conversations and like bonding with people in conversations. Obviously, maybe the next conversation she like throws them under the bus or whatever. But I do feel like when I'm watching her on the feeds, even I'm tricked by being like, oh, so she does love Min. Oh, so she does love so-and-so, because she's like having this great conversation and a great rapport. And then obviously like the next second she's like talking bad about them to someone else. But I'm convinced, and I'm sure that other people in the house are convinced when she's talking to them. So I could see a situation where things go well for her down the line once she like pulls it together. Now,
I will say that Taryn doesn't like my liberal use of the one paddle when people are annoying me, but also he was very perturbed with what Melissa was saying. So I'm curious to see like whose side of the middle he's more on.
is doing here.
Yeah, you know, and I will say that she was just recently talking with Carol, saying she does not trust Min. Min is not somebody she trusts. She's willing to, like, Min brings her information and she likes that, but she does not trust Min. So I guess Carol is her number one ally that she trusts, and nobody else. Yeah. Here's the thing about Vanessa. I talked about this a little bit this morning, that she really is like, she really has forced me to apologize to Bella. We made fun of Bella for ratting out her allies left and right, but Bella never actively tried to get her allies to target each other. She ratted them out, which got them to target each other, but then she tried to stop it. She was like, oh no, what have I done? That was bad. Whereas Vanessa is like, oh, hey, Kyle, Min wants to backdoor you. Let's get her backdoored. And then she was like, oh crap, Kyle tricked me. No, Min, Kyle is bad. We should go against Kyle. And then goes back to Kyle, and she's like, yeah, Min is coming for you because of what I said. And then back to Min, and like, yeah, you got to watch out for Kyle. We got to get rid of Kyle. Like, just constantly, and continues to throw to throw wood on the fire to make sure that they target each other. She just actively wants to get rid of her allies as often and as much as possible, and that is far worse than what Bella did. But, and here's what I said this morning as well, she has a much better social game than Bella does. Much more likable, and has this sort of like built-in advantage that she is kind of like the small town girl of the cast, right? And people see her as straightforward and innocent. And
can I just stop you right there? I don't mean to interrupt you, but like, don't you think that's all going to come back and bite her though? Yeah.
Yes, because this is like, I think that right now it's working for her, but I have no faith whatsoever that she is not going to somehow screw this up for herself, that she is somehow going to ruin everything that she touches, and it's all going to come crashing down. But for right now, she's not in immediate danger. She's not like she's still in a pretty well insulated spot until people finally start to realize what's happening. Given how good a spot she's in and how good her social game has been to this point, I can't go as low as a 1. But because of how little faith I have in her ability in the game, I am at a 3 for Vanessa. There's maybe a small chance that like she just stops being insane and starts playing.
No chance.
Quietly,
you know what I heard?
At least
you can only slide so far on barbed wire before you eventually get caught. That's what I know.
I guess so. The audience is actually higher than all of us on Vanessa.
Yay!
The audience gave Vanessa a 5 out of 10. The audience, it's the same people that gave her the have not vote, right? Like,
I guess.
I think they're just as drawn in by her social game as the people in the house.
Yeah, you know.
Plus, as an agent of chaos who isn't in danger yet, it's pretty compelling.
Yeah. I'll get behind it.
I'm seeing a lot of surprised reactions in the chat. Wow, we are idiots. All right. Let's talk about...
David, oh my God.
Let's talk about Min Lee.
Idiots.
Let's talk about Min Lee. Min Lee, saving the best for last year. Min Lee and Jamar.
You really are.
Let's talk Min Lee. Min. If we had done these ratings yesterday, I would have given Min like a 4 or 5. Then today, as I was rating her, I was like 6 at least. I mean, she's doing so well. Then she's talking about wanting to flip the vote and how she thinks she can keep it a secret and that she thinks she can work with Chris after doing it. And I'm like, okay, don't love that. I really don't know where to go here with Min. And so, look, I think that Min is in a good spot. And I think that she has some good instincts. I think that she plays hard, and that's working for her right now. But she's kind of her own worst enemy at times. I talked about this on Twitter, that there's something that she does that I really like, which is that she constantly asks people to tell her, like, what do people say about me? What do people think about me? And that's actually a pretty good way of getting like a barometer on the house's feelings for you. You hear from multiple different people. They're telling you different things that they've heard and different perceptions conversations that they have, or that people that they talk to have, and it can be an indication of who they're talking to, and what that means for you as a player, right? So I like that about her game, and I like that she's willing to go and talk to everyone and try to make connections to everyone. Now, there is an issue, I think, one issue with her, which is that she basically only talks game. She very rarely gets personal with people. So she doesn't really have any personal relationships apart from perhaps Jamar, which quite frankly is not really the same thing, right? If she talks game with most people but doesn't really get personal, then she talks like sexy eyes with Jamar and doesn't talk personal, right? Like, there's still not much personal going on there. So that's an issue for her. Another issue, like I said, she gets in her own way with all these plans and being so single-minded about wanting Kyle out and wanting to maybe flip a vote that it's really bad for her to flip a vote for. So there are a lot of things holding her back. I think like it's crazy, but she might be able to be somebody who is like a positive, above average player, get up there into the sixes. I very nearly gave her that, but this talk about flipping the vote just worries me, and it looks like it might not happen, but it still could happen, and even that possibility is just too much for me to go up to that 6. So for me, it's a 5. But Melissa, where are you?
I'm a 5 as well, and I just want to say I love Minley. I love her. I always gravitate towards her feeds whenever she's on. I always want to watch what she's doing. I'm totally interested in her. I think it's also because like I have no idea what to expect from her, that it's just like so interesting to me. Like it just draws me in and makes me want to watch it. I think she's funny and I think she's fun. And I do think she's pretty good socially. I will say though that like when she gets into confrontations, I mean the confrontation with Maddie when they were making up, it was like, okay, well, Minley would never just like admit she was wrong or say like, oh, I'm really sorry that you were hurt by that, like, you know, whatever. It was just like, okay, well, I'm sorry you misinterpreted my joke. And it's like that's not really a satisfying apology to anyone. So I feel like she could get into a lot of trouble in the future if she upsets people, or if there's some sort of argument. I don't see a situation where she like backs down and is like super apologetic and polite or whatever. Like I just don't see that. But for now, I absolutely love her. And I just love watching her. And I don't think that she's bad strategically. I think she maybe rubs some people the wrong way, but I think that overall, I think she's smart. So I'm excited to see what happens with her.
Yeah, she is smart. The problem is that she keeps telling people that. Right? Like that's Min in a nutshell. She is smart and then brags about it. Like it's just so you're your own worst enemy. Brent, what do you think?
Look, I gave her this score earlier today, so it's going to be a little bit higher than normal. I gave her a 6. I didn't give her a higher score than Suzanne. I gave her a 6. I absolutely agree with Melissa. I love Suzanne. I love Suzanne too. I love Min Lee. Min Lee is absolutely fantastic. I really wanted to give her a score of infinity. I don't know if you guys like ever were in math class and the teacher would like divide you into teams, and like they would ask you to give factors of certain numbers, and so each team would like try to give prime numbers, because the factors of prime numbers are like only the numbers themselves and the number 1. And eventually some idiot in the audience would eventually give the number 0. And of course, like the factors of the number 0 are like every number in the universe. And so that team would win by a score of infinity. That's what I wanted to give Min here, was a score of infinity. She is absolutely everything that I wanted. What did you say?
That was such a specific example that I totally couldn't relate to. And
you couldn't relate to it? I thought you got it. No, I was like, oh my God, I love you.
I just thought it was so funny. I was like, that is so specific.
She wins by a score of infinity in my heart, but in reality, it's a 6 for me, which is a higher score than Melissa and Taryn gave her, so I feel pretty good about that. Look, I think she's incredibly smart. Like, she says she's smart, but I really do think that she is smart, okay? And I know that she says it, but I feel like there are other fish to fry. I don't really feel like that Min Lee is going to go up on the block. I really don't think that people are going to try and get her up. Maybe if Maddie gets HOH, maybe that might happen. But even Maddie, I feel like, has other fish to fry at this point. Min does have, even though she's kind of a bitch and she owns it, she can be a little catty and she owns it. I do feel like that she has an ability to relate to people on a very honest level, where they kind of know that she's like that, but they know that she's not great at lying to them, so they're more inclined to trust her. I don't know. I'm looking for adjectives to give her a positive response here when she does have some faults in her game, but I'm probably papering over many of her faults in an effort to pump up her score a little bit based on what I saw in the latter part of the day, because she was making some moves that maybe weren't exactly for her best case scenario. But anyway, it's a 6 for me, and who knows? I'm just excited to have her on this season. I'm praying she lasts for a long time. Oh, yeah. We're frozen? Oh, we were
No,
frozen.
You're good. You're good.
Okay.
All right. Well, you also gave her a higher score than the audience, who was sided with Melissa and myself.
Okay. That's
they
not
gave
too
her
bad.
a 5. Yeah. So Min Lee gonna end up there at a 5. I was excited to give her a 6 too. I was like so ready to come in like, guys, seriously, we're sleeping on Min Lee. But man, this whole flipping conversation really
I feel like
my expectations.
I feel like we're going to be okay though, because I feel like that the house is going to save her from herself. Like she shouldn't be flipping here, and you've convinced me of that. And I feel like the house, like you need a little luck in Big Brother. I feel like she's going to get a little luck. The house won't flip, and thus she won't flip and screw herself over.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to Jamar. Brent, let's start with you on Jamar.
Also gave Jamar a 6. I didn't give him a highest score as Sue, but I think that Jamar is absolutely fantastic. And again, I have listened to the house guests for the past 96 hours or so. I don't think one time have I heard somebody say that they want to come for Jamar. I have heard almost everybody else at one time be considered targets for various people. I have not heard Jamar as, oh my God, we need to get Jamar out. I've not heard that from anybody. And not only that, he's actually really smart. He's really smart. And he talks to the camera and he lets us know what he's thinking. I feel like he has a good place in the game right now where he's sort of class clown, but enough people trust him that he does have their respect. And so I'm really excited about what Jamar's giving us. I'm just, again, so happy that these people are on our screen and we get to live with them for so long. So it's a 6 for me for Jamar.
All right, Melissa.
I love Jamar. I absolutely love Jamar. He's so fun to watch. He actually makes me laugh out loud when I watch his stuff. Like I will seriously crack up watching him. I mean, when he talks to the camera, when he's that one scene where he kissed Min Lee, but he first looked over at Sheldon, did a face so that Sheldon covered his eyes, and then Len kissed her and just kept leaving the room and coming back and kissing her. I was cracking up, especially because Min Lee was like, "Why are you covering your eyes, Sheldon? Why are you mad?" It was so funny. If you haven't seen that, there's clips of it on YouTube and places, I'm sure. So just go watch it because it's so funny. And then his chats to the camera I just kept thinking about Zach Rance and Dr. Will, because both those guys love talking with the camera. He does the whole dancey thing that Zach Rance does, and the kind of oh, I'm wild and out there kind of thing. But then does the kissing to the camera and the having the camera follow him around like Dr. Will. I honestly it. So fun, so entertaining. I love him and Min Lee together.
Yes.
It's just honestly.
And the show, Melissa, the show doesn't know what to do with them. I swear, they don't know what to do. This is like real tea. It's it's after midnight right now. This is a grudge fuck. That's what I feel like these two are.
They're so interesting.
There's so much anger and passion between them and love. It's so weird that it's all
so
wrapped
crazy.
into one.
I love it so much because I am not a showman's person.
Yeah.
I'm not. I feel like the only time I really like showmances is when it's a will they or won't they, what are they doing? They're kind of flirting, but we don't know. That's what interests me. I mean, honestly, I'll be honest, I liked the Zanky showmance. I mean, even though that wasn't really a showmance, I was intrigued by it because I was I don't know what's gonna happen. Oh my God, oh, Zach's gonna sleep in Frankie's bed tonight in the HOH room. I didn't know what was happening. And I feel like that's the case with Min Lee and Jamar, where it's they're talking and flirting about how oh, join me in my bed tonight. Oh no, what's going to happen? Are they going to? I don't know. I just feel like it's interesting to me. And a showmance to me that's interesting, that's fine with me. A showmance that's boring, that's just oh, we're two hot people and we're just boring and just going to kiss or something, that's lame. I want this sort of passionate, I don't know what's going to happen showmance. I love it. Anyway, this is so unlike me, I know. But I really like Jamar, really like Min Lee, love them together, and I'm giving Jamar a 6.
All right. I guess I'll have a little bit of a controversial opinion there. I love Jamar. I love Min Lee. The showman's thing does nothing for me.
Really? Oh my God! How dare you?
crazy, Karen.
Dare you?
Okay,
I don't like
they
the
want to
mixed
hook up. Like, that's fine. Like, that's
It's
not interesting to me.
That. It's not about that, Taryn. It's about like the tension of like we like each other, but we can't be seen together. But like we're gonna fight. We're gonna kind of like flirt, but also be rude to each other.
I don't know. I just feel like I graduated high school. Like, I feel like I'm done with that. You know, like.
Karen, totally. It's
I don't know.
fun.
Melissa, I wanted to ask you this.
I don't like dislike it. It just it's you know it is what it is.
Melissa, as myself, as a lover of men, okay, does Jamar's personality make him more charming or less charming? I'm just curious.
I think his personality is fun. I think that like he's unpredictable and like he just will say stuff where you're like, wait, why'd you say that? Like, I don't know. I just feel like it's that sort of personality, like without the like humor and like funniness, like that. I don't know. I'm not usually a huge fan of that, but I feel like the fact that like he's kind of like flirty and fun, like you can't really tell where he's going with things, and I just feel like he's entertaining, and so I really like his personality. I feel like I feel like I hate that sort of thing, but I feel like it's same with Zach Rance. Like I loved Zach Rance, but like normally that sort of personality like really rubs me the wrong way. So I was like, I did not expect to like Zach, but then you like kind of get to know him and you really like, I don't know, you're drawn to him. And so I feel like I see a Zach Rance sort of personality in Jamar.
All right. Well, I can tell you that the audience gave Jamar a 6. They agreed with you two. I, though, disagree. I'm higher on Jamar than you guys. In fact, I almost went with an 8 for Jamar. I really like what he's doing in the house.
Good.
I saw somebody in the chat say that he reminds them of JC, and I actually think that's a great comparison. Game wise, I think that like he's kind of like this wild card who is a little bit too loyal to somebody that's not loyal back, who everybody trusts with information even though they absolutely shouldn't, who is able to go around and rat people out all the time. And if he has a similar trajectory, I think that he can be more successful than JC was. And I think that's a possible route for him. He doesn't come off as a gamer, even though he's got the maliciousness, the deviousness of somebody like JC, and that's gonna work well for him. The fact that he's able to relay information to people when he needs to, he's seen as a valuable source of information. He's seen as a valuable ally. I think his biggest fault right now is just how bold and open he is about targeting people, in particular Kyle. It's not bad because the house backs him up, but if the house wasn't backing him up, I think he'd still be doing it, and that would be a scarier prospect. But similar to Minley, I think that like the situation is helping him out a bit, and so I think that as the season continues, that he will continue to grow and get better at this. And even though his connect now, I think the reason I didn't go with an 8 for Jamar is that he is most loyal to Sheldon, and Sheldon is not most loyal to Jamar, and that's bad for him right now. But if Sheldon loses Brooke, or like finds out that Kyle is a goner, or decides he needs to reevaluate, because he will need to soon because of what Vanessa did, I can see Sheldon moving in more with Jamar. And if that happens, a Sheldon and Jamar actual pairing there, where they're actually working together and sharing information and actually teaming up and orchestrating things together, I think that can be a very dangerous duo with Jamar's social ability and boldness combined with Sheldon's mind and charm. I think that they could do really well together. So I think that there's a lot of potential here for Jamar. I really like what he's doing. I am actually, I think Sue is like a solid 7 and Jamar is a high 7. And so Jamar is my top rated player of the week here. And that's how I feel.
Yay!
But you guys disagreed, and so he's going to average at a 6.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's in my top 3. What do you want from me?
All right. So that's what we have for the ratings. Thank you guys so much. This is definitely a very long one. This really got away from us here. But that's what happens. There's a lot to talk about. Also, we got a bit of a slow start.
Late start, a 40-minute delay at the beginning. Let's be real.
Yeah. So there are other questions on the survey. I want to try and run through those quickly if we can, just to get through them. I ask every week how you would rate the episodes of the show this week. A 6.5 is what we got, which is these numbers are startlingly high after a season of Big Brother 21. How would you rate the feeds this week?
We're so desperate.
Yeah. 7.77 is how people would rate the feeds. Very high here. How would you rate the season as a whole so far? 7.56. So pretty positive, especially in comparison to the latest seasons that have been going on here. I asked you to rank the players from your favorite to your least favorite. I think the top and the bottom are pretty easy to guess. We've got Sheldon up at the top, the favorite so far, and Kyle down at the bottom, followed very closely by Carol. Kyle and Carol down there at the bottom. Jamar, second place. Brooke, third place. Min Lee, fourth place. And Suzanne, fifth place. That's the top 5. Not super surprising there. Then we got Angie and John Luke and Michael down at the bottom. So nothing too surprising, but we'll see how this progresses across the season. I asked who you voted for to get the have not pass. Majority went Vanessa there. Not surprising, that's what happened. I asked, should production have let Carol leave when she wanted to quit? 70% said yes. Let her leave.
Girl, bye.
Should production have let Nico leave when he wanted to quit? 80% said yes. Let him leave. I asked strategically who is the best person for Chris to have targeted this week with his HOH. Most people agreed with Chris's move. They said Michael, 44%. The next highest was Min. They thought he should have targeted Min. 15% said that.
How dare
and then
you.
third place was Sheldon. They thought Sheldon was maybe somebody that should have been targeted. We then had, I asked you to rate the twists. How did you feel about the first week twist with a fan vote and no HOH? I think this is the first time I've ever seen this. It was a positive rating. It was over 50%.
Yep.
It's a rating out of 100. 0 is hate it. 100 is love it. This was smack dab in the middle, 58. So just a little bit of like, meh? Like, I think that's how to
It wasn't
interpret a
bad.
58. It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, I can deal with it.
Yeah, I didn't love the fact that they, made him feel bad and said, Canada basically hates you, which of course is not what really happened, but that's how they perceived it. I could have done without that, as I talked about on the show with Rob, but whatever. It was other than that, I thought it was done pretty well.
All right. Then I asked about the HOH can't compete in the veto rule that we had this last season in Big Brother Canada 7. They had it again this season. This is a little bit negative. This is about a 40 out of 100 on the scale of love it, hate it to love it. So this is more like a, That's how I interpret the 40.
Mm-hmm.
So then, who do you want to be evicted this week? 80% said Michael. Rather Michael leave than Brooke. All right. So that was the rest of the survey there.
By the way, I told Stacked I would ask how many people completed the survey this week, Taryn.
We just about hit 1,000 here for Big Brother Canada. Oh, just over 1,000 actually. So that's not bad for Big Brother Canada. We can do better.
Yes.
But Big Brother US usually hits those big numbers. I highly recommend take the survey, make your opinion heard. Oftentimes these things, the more the people vote, you can make a difference. These numbers change. Some of them are very close. If you really wanted Michael to be down at a 2, he was only 0.04 of a point away. You could have made it happen with your vote, but you didn't vote. So now he's a 3. That's how it works. All right. So that's what we have. Now, if you want to play in the Stockwatch, there's a place that you can go. You can go to, the link is now live, realitystockwatch.com. realitystockwatch.com, all one word, realitystockwatch.com.
realitystockwatch.com. Okay.
You can go there. You can sign in via a social media account.
Like
And
Facebook or Google or Twitter
Facebook,
or something?
Google, Twitter,
Yay.
Twitch,
Okay.
whatever you want. And through that link, you will be able to play in the Stockwatch. You will be given your $200 every week. You will get an additional 20. You can buy and sell shares of all of these players. The prices are now live. The ratings are in. It will do the math for you as you add shares. So you will see how much money you have and how much you can spend. There's also a projections page. So you can go to the projections page and you can see what will happen with each player's price given a specific rating in the following week. So if you look at somebody like Michael, who is given a 3 right now, if he's given a 6 next week, what will his price be? You can try to predict it that way. Gives you a little bit more information about who you might want to buy. And so some cool stuff. There's going to be a leaderboard there. There's going to be, lots of stuff. It's still a work in progress. Features will continue to be added as we go along. We're definitely, we're trying to get this perfect, but this is the launch. So, I apologize if anything goes wrong. But this should be very fun. We did also revise the formula. I spent days locked in a basement, basically, not in a basement really, but locked in a house, just like the Always Sunny thing, just like with a whole board of things in front of me. It's far too complicated now to actually explain in any sort of meaningful way. But that's what the projections page is there for. So you can see the working of the practical effect of the formula. But the basics of the formula are that if a player does well, a positive rating is considered 6 or above. If they do well, then they will receive various bonuses. They will be doing well. Their price will be better. If they do poorly, which is a 4 or below, then that will cost them. They will accumulate penalties. And basically, the formula accounts for the fact that if a player has a history of low ratings, then it's going to be a little more skeptical about them, even if they move up 1 week.
I like it.
And if they have a history of high ratings, they will start to level out. That okay, you're consistently good. That's great. But are you going to continue to do better, or are we going to start to look at other players who are like moving up? So different things, but you can always look at the projections page to see, what's going to happen each week. So I'm very excited about this. I hope you guys enjoy the website. Hopefully this works for you. I will tweet out the link as well, so that you can see it there. But this should be fun. So we're going to see how it goes.
Looks very fun, very snazzy, Taryn. I'm very excited to play this.
Snazzy.
Yes. Just a simple question. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but given that we can log in through Facebook and Twitter and whatever, like, are there going to be like possibilities that people could create like 5 different accounts? Because I want to beat these people fair and square. So I'm going to win this year.
I would discourage people from making multiple accounts. I think
we will find you.
I don't know if it's possible. I think I don't know is the real answer. I'm sure a dedicated person could find a way to do it. But I would discourage people from making multiple accounts. You certainly if I see 2 people who are the same, you're not going to get credit, right?
Right.
So now that doesn't mean that like if you lose like all your money, like you can join back in. You're just going to lose out on profits that you made before.
Right.
But one thing that I want to do with this is that now that you have an account, which will keep track of your overall net worth, that we can start to track you across multiple seasons. And so even if you don't win this season, it doesn't mean you're out of the game. The money that you end the season with will still accumulate in your overall career of Stockwatch performance, right? And we'll have an overall leaderboard as well. So also discourages you from, I think, making really risky plays, right? Because you don't want to lose everything, because it's not a winner take all kind of thing. You can accumulate over the course of seasons. So lots of fun stuff to play with as we go. Very much looking forward to all of it. This has been a long podcast, but thank you guys for sticking with us. It's been a lot of fun. Any final thoughts here, Brent or Melissa?
Melissa, I'm just so excited to watch this season with such a diversity and likability within this cast is just off the charts. I am so excited. The thing that really pops out at me is just the unpredictability, the absolute chaotic nature of so many of these people. They just have no idea. Their minds are working 1,000 miles a minute, and we are the beneficiaries of that. And I think we are just so lucky to have Big Brother Canada 8 on our screens right now.
Yes, I'm very excited to see how the rest of the season goes. I'm excited to see who we end up hating and who we end up loving and what ends up happening. So this will be fun.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. You can find me on Twitter at Armstrong Terran. Make sure you do that so that you can find the survey when it is tweeted out. Again, I will also tweet out the link to the Stockwatch site. You can find Brent at One Lucky Gay, and you can find Melissa at It's Melissa with 3 of those A's. Make sure you tune in tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern, where I will update everything that happens today on the Big Brother Canada 8 live feeds. And then Thursday night, we will be back to recap the eviction episode of the show. And of course, also Thursday, I will be live with a Survivor podcast. This week, I'm going to be talking with Matt Hoffman about this week's Winners at War episode. So make sure you check that out, along with all of the other great Survivor coverage that's happening with Rob Sesternino of Rob Has a Podcast. Bro, you know. So thank you once again for joining us so much. I love you. And I'll see you next time.